Good evening and welcome to the regular scheduled Rossmoor Community Services District meeting. Tonight is July 10, it's 2012. May we have the roll call, please?
Director Casey?
Here.
Director Kaler?
Here.
Director Maynard?
Here.
Director Rips?
Here.
And President Coletta?
Here. Would you please join us as we pledge our allegiance to the flag? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have no presentations this evening. We do have, I believe, an addition to the agenda. But before we go there, I'd like to open up to public forum, and this is where the opportunity of the residents or anyone in the audience that wishes to address the board on any matters that we have jurisdiction over. Please come forward, state your name. You have 3 minutes. Tell us that you're a resident or not, and please share with us your thoughts.
My name is Joyce Bloom, and I live at 12101 Chaucer.
Ms. Bloom, could I ask you to bring the microphone down so we hear everything you're going to share with us? Thank you.
All right. Number one, I'd like to know what the opinion of the Attorney General was. I heard it came down, but I never found out what it said. So I was wondering if you would enlighten everybody.
I believe it's posted on the website. Is that correct?
I can't get on the website.
Okay, it's also, I believe it's in item.
One of the Attorney General opinions, I think both of them are on item, right, on item D2, or D1 of the agenda. It's at the back table.
It's on the back table? All right, so just, why don't you tell everybody what it said? I mean, it's very easy to do that.
Mr. President, members of the board, will make a report on that during item D1.
All right, so if you could just wait a few minutes, we'll get have a discussion on it.
And I want to thank you. I heard that you're going to televise your board meeting. Is that correct?
We continue to do so. I don't see...
Well, I haven't seen it advertised in the Sun as, you know, the day that it's going to be. But I know that it was in question, and I feel very strongly that the community actually does like to see it on TV. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Good evening, board members. My name is Diana Carey. I'm the I-405 Freeway Chairwoman for the City of Westminster. I live at 13462 Milan Street in the city. I wanted to come to you this evening to give you a report on what's happening with the I-405. And the OCTA has now finished with all of their public hearings. And I'm pleased to report that I've been to all of the public hearings with the exception of the one in Costa Mesa. And we have all the cities along the corridor have some issues in common. One of the issues is we're extremely concerned about the impact on our business communities, and that is due to Alternative 3. And may I stop and ask, are you familiar with the 3 alternatives?
Briefly, I think there are some materials before us tonight that do summarize briefly what the 3 options are. But
would you like me to
if you can do it in a few seconds, that'd be great.
Well, there are 3 alternatives. Excuse me, 3 build alternatives. The first one is to add 1 general purpose lane in each direction. The second one adds 2 general purpose lanes in each direction. And the third option, it adds 1 toll lane and 1 general purpose lane. Now, it does not matter which alternative they choose. All of the bridges with the exception of Seal Beach Boulevard, between the 605 and the 73 have to be reconstructed to be able to accommodate any of those options. All of the cities along the corridor are very concerned about the issue that that's going to have on our business communities. Alternative 3 basically creates a pass-through. There will be 2 egress points, one at Golden West and one at Magnolia. Otherwise, it'll go all the way down. Our representation on the board is the mayor of Huntington Beach, and he is in favor of Alternative 3, but you know, the rest of the cities along the corridor are not in favor of Alternative 3. One of the other issues that we're concerned with is we feel that Alternative 3 does not fit the spirit of M2. And the reason for that is if you start right now with the freeway, you have 4 general purpose lanes and 1 HOV lane for 2+ cars. Excuse me, cars with 2+ passengers. When you end with Alternative 3, you get 5 general purpose lanes, but the 2+ cars will be spread throughout those lanes because the new toll facility is going to require people with 3 or more in their vehicles. And those 2 lanes are going to be managed together, so they will be restricted. And in order to get into the toll facility, you will need to have a transponder and a transponder account. So, you know, that is one of our issues, that, you know, if you start with 5 and you end with 5, you really haven't given the general public what they signed on to measure M2 for. And so we would like them to put that back, you know, to the general public if they really want to do the toll facilities. So I know that Councilman Miller and Shelley from Seal Beach also have other issues that they would like to speak to you about. But that's kind of the general summation. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions. As I said, with the exception of Costa Mesa, I've been to all of the meetings, and I'm also a member of our Chamber of Commerce, and I've been to the stakeholders meeting and the policy working group meeting since 2005. So anything, sure. Mike.
Yeah, I have a question. I've looked at the documents that are on the website for the OCTA. They mentioned they look at affected areas that are within 500 feet of the project. Is that defined as the current freeway or where the new wall will be? Do you know how they define that 500 feet?
You know, I'm not sure about that. I know that sound walls are one of our big issues. I mean, I know it's an issue in Seal Beach, it's an issue in Westminster as well, and we really haven't gotten a definitive answer to that. I think that what they were looking at is where it is now. But I know for sound walls, when they went through the document, they specifically delineated it by Alternative 1, Alternative 2, and Alternative 3. And sometimes they recommended for sound walls, and sometimes they recommended against sound walls. So that's, you know, a technical question, and
okay,
you know what I'll do
since you went to the meetings, I was just curious.
Yeah, I'm not...
They define that distinction of what 500 feet really means.
Right, yeah, and I'm not totally positive what they mean by that.
I have one question. Either of these 3 options, 1, 2, or 3, and regarding only Westminster's proper boundaries, have you seen that either one of these 3 alternatives would take property in order for the installation of these designs?
No, we were really active in 2005 because originally the plans were going to take over 300 homes and businesses along the corridor, and we were primarily the ones that were affected by that. But we worked with them since 2005, and they are taking no homes and no businesses. Now, there were some very, you know, touchy, I'll say, issues with regard to our business district, because when they rebuild all the bridges, they have to raise them up, and that raised the, you know, the level of the roads. But we've been working with them to try and mitigate those issues. So there are no, at this point, there are no homes or businesses that are going to be taken. They do take here and there along the corridor some footings for signs and things like that. And we are trying to even work with them on that to try and move them to an area where, it doesn't impact anyone's, backyard or anything like that. So that we really had to give them, credit for that, because they did work very diligently to try and not take our homes and businesses. So they deserve credit for that. I forgot to mention the cost. Alternative 1 is $1.3 billion, and they do have the funding for that. Alternative 2 is, which adds the 2 general purpose lanes, that's $1.4 billion, and they are $100 million short on that particular alternative. And alternative 3 is $1.7 billion, and so they are, the short on that particular, option, and that's also one of the reasons why they say they want to go toward toll lanes, to pay for that, so they can go and have toll bonds issued against it. In alternative 2, the HOV lane and the general purpose lane, it takes approximately the same amount of time during rush hour to get from the 605 to the 73, and that runs about 37 minutes. And in alternative 3, it will take the general purpose lanes about, in the neighborhood of 37, 38 minutes, but they're going to use congestion pricing. So what they are saying is that from the 605 to the 73, they'll price it so that it'll stay open and you can make it in under 15 minutes. Currently, the pricing on the 91 freeway, which they always say it's a 91 style freeway, runs a little more than $10 one way for 10 miles. They haven't issued how much it would be. They've only said that possibly you would need the transponders. But really, when we've asked about it, they don't know how it's going to be managed yet. They don't know if it's going to be turned over to a private company or if the OCTA is going to manage it. And then the last thing, which really disturbs us, and I'm sure that Bill and Shelley will talk to that as well, on the 3rd, I went to the Long Beach City Council meeting because, as I'm sure Mr. Casey knows, that at the stakeholders meeting, we always ask, it's a really important question, what are you doing at the county line? And they always said nothing, because the Long Beach and the MTA do not attend those meetings. And when they started the city meetings, that came up immediately. And then they said, oh yes, we are talking to the OCTA. And on the 2nd, I was at the Huntington Beach study session, and they were talking about it as well. And they said, oh yes, we're talking, and they even mentioned that they might possibly be adding lanes, which is a topic. So anyway, the next day I went to the Long Beach City Council meeting, and what a surprise, they're not talking to them. What Long Beach did is on the, in 2009, when they added this 3rd toll option, Long Beach did ask for 10 items to be reviewed on the environmental impact report, and I believe they said they only reviewed 3. And their city manager at that meeting also said last week was when the OCTA started to really get in touch with them. And I don't know if any of you attended the first Seal Beach meeting we had here at Rush Park. I sat with the Long Beach lawyers, the Long Beach engineers, and asked if they in fact had been talking to Long Beach, and they just said it's preliminary. So we are really concerned about that, because we can see, especially on the northbound, that this is going to be a real backup.
Thank you, Ms. Kearney.
Okay,
Well,
great.
yeah, one last thing. If I understand correctly, based on having looked at the schedule over several different situations when I've attended the meetings, and it looks like, depending on decisions that are made in terms of approvals and the like, the project could start as early as maybe a year from now. Or am I misunderstanding the schedule?
No, you're not. What they're saying is they're going to want to start. They're going to start in 2015, and end in 2019. They cannot start that project until they finish the West County connectors, which is going to be Seal Beach Boulevard, and then the ramp, you know, from the HOV lanes
Right,
to
we have
the
our own
605.
issues on that, too.
You do have, yeah, and some of those issues are our issues as well. But anyway, that is an accurate statement. So
I
anyway,
just have, I've got one last question for you.
Sure.
I'm sorry, President Coletta. On the northbound 405, where it meets the county line, how is that left? Because obviously that's a big concern, because if you had 6 lanes here and there's 4 lanes there, it's going to choke and it's going to stall right here at Seal Beach Boulevard.
right. That
So-
actually, it'll probably even be back farther than that. I know.
So what's anything?
We don't have an answer to that. That's why I went to the Long Beach meeting, because as we see it, that's a huge, huge issue, because any place where you make a transition, you know, those communities are really going to be much more affected than, say, a community down the road like Huntington Beach.
That's
Yeah,
right here.
well,
That's here, yeah.
I'd like to state something. I actually went onto the website where it shows the scope of work, and the scope has changed. It's going to, according to currently what the plan would be, it goes past the 605, 1.4 miles. So it actually crosses the 605, and that's where the choke point would be.
Well,
Would be more near, I think it's Bellflower Boulevard is where all of a sudden, just so you know, that's currently what's on their website.
Yeah, and whether or not they've talked to Long Beach about that, I don't know. But they have mentioned, you know, we're going to widen the lanes. But that backup is a huge issue for us as well.
Yeah.
So,
And the same issue would probably occur on the 605 as you go northbound on that freeway.
right, yeah. So I asked at our West County Connectors meeting on Monday, Henry and I are buddies because we're on that committee together, about that if they didn't foresee a backup, because you've got 2 HOV lanes and, you know, one goes one direction and one goes the other direction, and people, anytime people have to jockey for position, you're going to have a backup. So that is really a very serious question, and I don't have an answer to that. So, but anyway, thank you very much for letting me speak this evening.
Mr. President, members of the board, when I specifically asked that question of Neil Barrett, who is the project manager for that particular project, he says, oh, well, we have capacity on the 22 7th Street, on the 605 and the 405, and we think that it will work. I mean, that was a position about 2 months ago, that they were basically saying that it's not a problem. I think the EIR process will show it differently.
Yeah.
Good evening. I'm Shelley Sestarsik, president of the College Park East Neighborhood Association, just across the road from you guys. We're also very concerned in Seal Beach. We've had 2 neighborhood meetings, one in the tennis club where we had so many residents come that we were bursting out of the seams. We had one the following week over here at North Seal Beach Community Center with 200 people in, very upset about all this, partly because the alternative 2 and the alternative 3 that add the more lanes, they would involve moving our wall along the road there, and it would shrink our access road to a lot of the cul-de-sacs. It also involves the electrical lines being moved, possibly right up against the homes. It involves some water, loss of parking on one side. They have a street sweeper that comes with nowhere to go after this, and all the construction mess and probably a devaluation of their property. So they're very concerned about that. We're also concerned about alternative 3 though too. With alternative 2, that was also our concern, is you've got in that one, you've got 8 lanes plus 2 HOV lanes coming in, so there's like 10 up in our section. With the merging of the 22 and 405, you have like 10 lanes coming in there. And so that's what my understanding was up until recently too, is they're saying that 2 lanes will go to 7th Street, 2 lanes will go to 605, and then that the other 4 will go straight forward. And so we've said, well, most of the people want to go north on the 405. I think there's like 30,000 per day on the 7th Street, which is less than 10%. So I can't see, their contention is that because there's no lane drops like there are now, because each lane is going a dedicated place, that there's no congestion problem. and that people might just decide to take the 605 if it's congested. Well, right now they have that option, and you know, everybody who lives up here knows what happens, you know, going north on the 405. With the alternative 3, they're adding one general purpose lane, and in our section of the freeway, they are not adding a toll lane. The West County Connectors project that's under construction right now is adding a second HOV lane. And they're adding the connectors that go between the 605 and the 405 and the 405 and the 22. So what this project will do is it will add one general purpose lane, and it will take over both of those carpool lanes. So it will be building nothing, it will just be adding one general purpose, and then all the cars that are 2 cars in the carpool lane will have to get out and just leave the 3+, which is up to 80% of the cars. So this way they have what they call excess capacity that they can sell. So when we attended the Huntington Beach meeting, it was very interesting because they were very excited. There was a lot of spin going on, and it seems like there's a lot of dollar signs floating around in people's minds, and that they haven't said that it would be confined to the corridor. So any money that OCT raises could be spent on whatever projects the OCT board chooses. So our contention is that, you know, these lanes are paid for with tax dollars. We're not in favor of everything, the lanes and the connectors, which they're just now building to try to ease our transitions, would be put into the express system. And that most of us would be in, especially local travelers, would be in the general purpose lanes, which would be constricted. So we would get actually no change, because right now we have 6 lanes, and so if they add one and take 2 away, we're still going to be at the same capacity. They'll say that, well, because more cars will be moving faster in the express lanes, that there's actually more throughput, and that seems to be what their statement of what they're going to decide is throughput in 2040, which basically says that they're going to pick alternative 3. So we're concerned. None of our citizens are in favor of that one, and we're very concerned about what's happening at the county line, because the EIR says that there's not going to be, you know, a problem. It does say, if you look closely, that it's going to be a level of service F, you know, when you get right up to the county line. But the spin is kind of that everything will be, you know, great. So anyway,
I have a question.
Sure.
Do you know if this also affects your tennis center? Does that take away any of their property?
It won't take away any property, I don't believe, but it's said that the sound wall, I don't know if they have a sound wall per se, but the sound wall would not be rebuilt. So if they take some kind of wall or something away, that it wouldn't be, I don't think they really have one, but whatever they have, it said it wouldn't be rebuilt there. And also our park, we have a park.
I was ready to say, right next to Alman is that park.
That
so
park
now
is city property, and that's not being touched. The land that they are taking is apparently state property. It's Caltrans right-of-way.
Okay.
So they're coming right up to the right-of-way, and that's part of the reason that we have trouble stopping them from moving the wall, because they're actually moving the wall on their own property when they do that.
But that extra lane now putting out emissions where kids play and
Yeah.
people playing tennis.
Yeah,
If I was in your neighborhood,
Yeah.
I too would be very concerned,
yeah, we are.
especially with the kids.
But the EIR says that it will be improved, because there will be more throughput, or cars will be moving faster. I can't really see how they're going to be moving faster, but it's a comparison in 2040 between the no build and the express. So it's not, they're not looking at what's going to happen to us in the next 10, 15, 20 years between the time that they build this and LA decides to finally do something. They said, well, you know, LA finally expanded on the 5, and, you know, I don't know what they're, it just seems to me an express lane to nowhere, because it's not you know. And then also, one of the board members in Huntington Beach, she was very supportive. She works in Lakewood, and so she said, I drive this every day. I think it's going to be a mess when you get to the county line. Some days I bail out on Seal Beach Boulevard, drive up to the 605 to go to Lakewood. So that's also a concern of ours, is that, you know, Seal Beach Boulevard for you too is our north-south arterial. When, you know, when something happens on the freeway and everyone starts getting off, that it's like paralysis for us. So we're concerned, you know, that we're already level of service F, and it's just predicted to not have an effect because we're already bad, I guess. It just says there's no effect on Seal Beach Boulevard or whatever, so.
There might be more questions, but I want to thank you.
Okay.
I want to thank you as a person coming to our community and sharing your point of view in your community.
Oh, thank
and more
you.
importantly, I'm sure your residents are very thankful that you're doing this.
Oh, thank you. We're just also concerned about the quarter pile or 500 feet that they're mailing. You know, it doesn't seem to me like they're really informing anyone, and we want to
That's
try
one of
to
my
make
questions
people
is the
aware.
500 feet, especially when it encroaches into a park, into a school,
Yeah.
into people playing tennis and trying to breathe while they're playing. But again, what you're doing for your community, I applaud you for.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Thank you.
No?
Thank you.
My pitch will be easier now. President Coletta, and honorable board members, it's an honor to be before you again tonight. I'm Gary Miller. I'm the District 4 Seal Beach City Councilman. I have District 4 as College Park East, the Sunrise facility, as well as the Old Ranch Homes north of Target. I'm here tonight to ask the residents of Rossmoor, as well as the board, to consider responding to the EIR. They've already covered the alternatives, so I'll skip that part. I will mention, again, they're proposing to move the sound wall, probably 60 to 70% of the sound wall in up to 10 feet in College Park East. We've been trying to develop alternatives with them. I, the mayor, and staff went to Sacramento and met with Senator Harmon, with Assemblyman Silva, with Director Doherty of Caltrans, as well as Will Kempton, the CEO of OCTA, in an effort to get them to agree to the alternatives that we've developed that we think would save the sound wall, leaving it in place under all scenarios, and they've been unwilling to consider it so far. We're proposing maybe 1,500 feet on the inside to have a shoulder of 4 feet, and they say they want 10 feet, so it's standard. But on the other side of the freeway right now, it's planned to have 3,000 feet of 4-foot wide shoulder, and they think that that's okay, but they're the same scenario, and we want less of a shoulder, but they still won't accept it. So we're still working with them, trying to get them to accept that alternative. That's the one issue we don't have in common with Rossmoor, but the issues we do have in common with Rossmoor is the gridlock, the air quality issues, and the noise issues, because nothing's being done on the LA side. There are no plans to do anything. They may never do anything on the LA side. I mean, there's nothing, they just talk about it. More OCTA talks about it. As you heard, Long Beach isn't talking about it because they haven't talked to Long Beach. And Caltrans LA County is not coordinated with Caltrans Orange County. So there's going to be a parking lot there, and it's going to back up toward the 22-405 connection. Yep. And the issue is the EIR doesn't even address that scenario. They talk about 2035, and I guess they make the assumption that LA has now got a complementary project, and that's not there. So that's an issue that we all share. The air quality issue, our air quality is, we're going to have air pollution, additional air pollution. We're going to have noise. And we're going to have traffic problems. I mean, we're going to have problems getting on the freeway and off the freeway. And I don't know if it was mentioned, but the issue with the express lane, one of the issues is that it's going to begin down by the 73 and it's going to end up on the 605. And once you're on it, there's only two places to get off, either Magnolia or Golden West. So somebody getting on Seal Beach Boulevard wanting to go south, you couldn't even get in the express lane to get to Golden West. And if you're coming back and you don't want to go all the way up to Catella, or maybe beyond there, I don't know how it's going to exactly connect, you have to get off at Golden West again. So there's really very little advantage for our area. And that's the other issue we have in common with everybody. As they said, it's not been noticed to people over 500 feet away, even though OCTA will tell you they've told the whole county about it. And I guess that's possible. I talked today to Cypress, and of course they're aware of it, and they do not like the express lane also, the toll express lane, I should stress. The toll express lane, they're going to set the toll to have the freeway flow freely. So they're going to basically create congestion on the other side of, the free lanes. I just tell you what we did last night at the Seal Beach City Council. We voted to send a letter to the chairman, Paul Glad of the OCTA, advising him that we consider the EIR inadequate and doesn't comply with the statutory requirements, and the city is opposing alternatives 2 and 3. Also, I should say that we also approved filing comments on the EIR, which are due by July 17th. At this latest count, we have 500 pages in our response, and of 300 of which are appendices. So that's kind of where we stand. We're not in agreement with the project. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Hang on, there's another gentleman here that'd like to address the board who hasn't spoken yet.
Good evening. I'm Erwin Annisman, a Rossmoor resident. I have just a couple of questions, quick questions. The first one, I've heard reference here a couple of times in your meetings about a sign that you're thinking of putting up somewhere. I never heard any details about it. I don't know if this is a Rossmoor sign that you're planning to put up at the village square, but I've never heard any. So could I have just a quick thumbnail sketch of that?
Summary, it's one of the proposed capital improvement projects for fiscal year 2012-2013 to put micro signature marquees, if you will, like we have directly out front of Rush Park Auditorium here at the driveway.
Mm-hmm.
So there'd be the comparable of that on the opposite side of Wallingsford, which you were instrumental in installing on Catella and Wallingsford. There would be one on the opposite side by the church, proposed.
Oh, on the church side?
Correct.
Oh, even though we have one on one side?
Correct. And then there's proposal, also part of the capital improvement project, to place one near Hedwig and Los Alamitos Boulevard, and one at the corner of Los Alamitos and Catella.
In Los Alamitos and Catella?
Correct.
So this is on county property, or?
This is correct. It's property owned by private individuals. As you're well aware, the private individuals that do own the property. It's an unincorporated area, but yet it is within the sphere of influence of Rossmoor Community Services District. That has never changed.
Well, we're not in the sphere of, we're not, Rossmoor is not in the sphere of influence of the district anymore, but.
I disagree. What we're talking about is that corner area.
Yeah.
It's still within.
So you'd have to get the private party to agree to it. Okay. Thank you. Question number 2 is, the filing deadline for the board elections in November is coming up. I was wondering if the district is planning to put any publicity on it, like in the local papers?
We have a drafted press release, which I'll send to the board tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
By the way, the EIR is right next to you, just so people, right here, so people get an idea of what that document
There it is.
looks like.
Excuse me for coming up again, but the comment was made about in the EIR, under the pollution part, it does say that they feel that there won't be any increase and that it will actually be better. And so I wanted to just clarify that for the audience. When they do those standards, they're not comparing today in 2012 with 2035. What they do is they look at the pollution if they didn't build in 2035, and then they look at the pollution if they do build in 2035. And that's the comparison. It's not a comparison from today to 2035. So if you don't build in 2035, you're going to have really bad pollution. If you do build in 2035, because you've done the faster cars go, the less they pollute, then you've reduced those 2035 pollution levels. Therefore, they say that it's not going to cause any issues.
Right, but that report has a ton of assumptions built into it that
Oh,
are not necessarily
absolutely.
accurate.
Absolutely, and everybody...
25 years from now?
Yeah, I know. Everybody needs to know that that's a best guess. I mean, it's the same thing with the traffic numbers that they are given us. I talked with our engineering department, matter of fact, today we were talking about it, and we don't believe that they've run any actual traffic simulations on it. At all of our meetings, they have the little thing where it shows cars moving, but that we don't believe they've done the actual work that goes into that to really predict it. So all of it's best guess, but I did want to clarify that it's 2035 to 2035, not 2012 to 2035, and that's the discrepancy. Thank you again.
Yeah, well, that's a good point.
All right. It appears no one else is coming forward for public forum, so we'll move from that item. And normally the next order of business would be reports to the board. Mr. Chabota, I would ask yourself and as well as board members permission to consider removing one item on page 2, which is the regular calendar H7.
Mr. President, members of the board, do you not want to deal with the issue of the I-405 project? You mentioned that there
move H7 up first.
7 first,
And then go to that
to
other
the
item.
additional item. Very good, thank you.
So I don't know if anyone misunderstood, but basically I'm asking that H7, which deals with the employment agreement of prospectively General Counsel Jenkins and Hogan, to be moved up prior to reports to the board and other business.
That's fine.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Mr. Rips, you okay with that?
Yes.
All right. All right, seeing a general consensus by an affirmation, I'd ask that we move that up. And if you would give us a report on H7 then.
Very good, Mr. President, members of the board, we're asking you to approve an employment agreement with the law firm of Jenkins and Hogan as general counsel for the district. As a matter of background, at your special board meeting on June 7th, 2012, the board took an action to hire the law firm of Jenkins and Hogan, LLP, as special counsel due to a conflict of interest with your current general counsel, BB&K, with the County of Orange. At your special board meeting of June 21st, the board took an action to dismiss BBK as district general counsel and asked the general manager to secure a proposed employment agreement with the law firm of Jenkins and Hogan, LLP. That employment agreement is attached for review and approval, and you also have a profile on the law firm of Jenkins and Hogan profile. And Mr. Greg, let's see if I can get this. Kovacevic is present and would be your actual general counsel if you approve this agreement. And upon approval, then we would ask Mr. Greg Kovacevic to take his seat next to me as your general counsel.
Mr. Kovacevic, would you like to come forward? I want to come to the podium for a moment. I don't know if anyone has any questions of the board of the agreement that's attached.
Any questions?
Nothing from me.
Mr. President, members of the board, I think it would be appropriate for the public to understand that the board went through a vetting process of general counsel candidates with the objective in mind that we would look for a general counsel that would not have conflicts with the County of Orange and with LAFCO, and that upon vetting of the available law firms in the area, the biggest law firms, of course, would be perhaps not as appropriate for an agency of our size in terms of cost and service to the district, and that the law firm of Jenkins and Hogan are of the right size, of the right constituent lawyers, have the background and the expertise to guide the district as its general counsel, and have absolutely no conflicts with the County of Orange or with LAFCO. And that, I think, will lessen the district's recent activity with hiring special counsel to deal with these conflicts. So the goal here was to basically collapse all of that special counsel work into general counsel without conflict.
That's correct. I have nothing further to add. I can state that I was part of a group that vetted the number of firms that were considered, and And I would echo the same Mr. Talbot has already stated for the record. It was very, very burdensome to find out in the last couple of months that the law firm we had employed for 6 or 7 years or more had become conflicted out, either in representing the County of Orange directly, which is a bigger client, and/or the Orange County LAFCO, which at times have been conflict, with BBK giving their best objective and counsel to this district, and it became more clear that something had to change. And so in the interests of our uniqueness, we're a small community, and given yet the good talent within Jenkins and Hogan, the board found that the 12 or 14 attorneys that are generalists in many areas of law other than bond law, which is a rarity that comes up in this district, it is believed in our discussions in the past that they would be the best fit for the community of Rossmoor and the Rossmoor Community Services District. So as such, is there a motion tonight to adopt the contract?
So motioned.
And approve it.
Second.
Anyone who want to discuss this any further?
Nothing other than they're an excellent match based on our requirements and the services they provide, which you've pretty much stated earlier.
And might I state, cost effectively?
Mm-hmm. Even more important, or just as important.
All right, then I'm going to call for the question. All in favor of approving this contract, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed, please say nay. No opposition, motion carries. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you very much.
To the district. And we have a seat for you tonight. We'd like you to join us and get acclimated to us.
Great. Thank you very much.
Learn about us. All right, now we'll move back to what would have been our normal order, which would have been reports to the board, but as you've come to understand, there's going to be one amendment to tonight's agenda. Mr. Tabata, would you introduce what that proposed agenda item is and see if there's a consensus of this board to agree to have a discussion and have it moved on?
Mr. President, members of the board, during the week I was asked, after the agenda had been prepared and sent to the board, if the board had an opportunity to basically take an action with with regard to requests that had been made of individual board members for the board to take an action with regard to the I-405 improvement project. Since the agenda had already been finalized, I took the opportunity to contact our now general counsel, Greg Kovacevic, as to the procedure and the appropriateness of adding this item to the agenda, should the board wish to take an action and direct me and your general counsel to prepare such a response to either the EIR or a subsequent response after the filing period or the comment period, which ends on July 17th. I've provided you with the counsel from the advice of counsel, and if you want to add this to the agenda to direct us to take some action, then it would require 4/5 vote, which is 4 members of the board to put this onto the agenda within the restrictions that were outlined by general counsel.
Mr. Kovacevic, can you give us just a thumbnail sketch of what those restrictions are? Not everyone perhaps understands exactly what that means. It's a subjective view, but so we're all on the same page.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
The Brown Act requires 2 findings to add an item to an agenda. As Henry suggested, the first finding is that the matter came to the attention of the district subsequent to the posting of the agenda. The second finding is that there's a need for an immediate action. And of course, there has to be a factual basis for either finding before the motion can be made. Henry's suggestion was that the matter came to his attention after the agenda was in fact posted. And the reason that there is a need for immediate action is because there is no other meeting of this body before the deadline, which is imminent. It's next week, I believe. The comment period closes. So that was the stated factual basis for the 2 requisite findings.
All right. Given the records we made, is there a motion by anyone to add to tonight's discussion this agenda item to discuss Number one, whether or not Rossmoor Community Services District, in of itself, or other organizations in addition to the Rossmoor Community Services District, would even entertain submitting a response to the Orange County Transportation Authority, or Caltrans, or both, critiquing the EIR.
I will make a motion to add this to the agenda because we've heard some compelling statements by our community members, outside of our community, I should say, our neighbors, people that we go to school with, people that we work with. I think it's important enough that we should at least be able to discuss it instead of just moving on to the next item. And I think it's important enough that I will make that nomination.
All right, anyone who would like to second that?
I'll second.
All right. That's three. Then, if there's no further discussion, all in favor of placing this on the agenda this evening, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No one's opposing it, so it's on the agenda for discussion. Mr. Tabata, would you like to add anything as an introductory remark to the agenda item that's just been added?
Well, Mr. President, members of the board, sometimes questions arise about subject matter jurisdiction, and in our discussion with you and I, we have discussed whether or not it would be appropriate for this board to ask the RHA to join with you in some sort of a combination of interests to respond to the comment period. The difficulty is that if you do direct me to attempt to get that document formatted and sent within the allotted time, we could not bring it back to you before July 17th to send it on. But if you directed me to prepare the document, ask the RHA if they would join with us, and if so, then present you with that document as a completion of my task to formulate that response. If you tell me tonight what your position is, then certainly we could formulate that document and ask for co-signage with the RHA.
Have you spoken with the president of the Homeowners Association?
I have not, but I have spoken with Mr. Tom Fitzgerald, who is also a representative with me on the OCTA Caltrans advisory group that meets on a weekly basis. And I basically asked him if the board had taken a position or not on this subject. And he said there had been some informal discussion, but it had not been brought to the board for a decision by them to take a position. He said that at their next meeting, which I believe is a week from today,
July 17.
that they could discuss it then and perhaps join with us in that decision. If in fact it was on that day, and it is July 17th, we could certainly fax that to OCTA, I think, before the midnight hour, and get in on record. The advantage of commenting before the comment period closes is that there is a requirement that they respond to your position. You can comment at any time during the course of the project, but then there is no requirement that they respond back to you with your concerns. I will tell you that my experience with working on the West County Connector project, which is, as been said, is in work today. OCTA and Caltrans have been very responsive in addressing the concerns expressed by various citizens and organizations and communities. But there's no guarantee that would transfer to the new project. So I think if you want to get your comments on record, if you want the RHA to participate, and you want to get a response back from them, then it would be appropriate for me to attend that RHA meeting and see if we are in agreement. And if we're not, then General Counsel can advise you if it's appropriate to go without their co-sponsorship.
Is Mr. Fitzgerald still on the board? I know that they've had a recent change of board of directors. Is he still on the board?
I believe he is.
He is? Thank you. Because when I had a discussion with Mark, and I can never pronounce his name, Nickman? That's a hard one.
It's like Kovacevic and Tabuada.
He had a different memory point than Mr. Fitzgerald. He stated that the RHA doesn't have a position, nor did they want to make a position. because they felt that the community had so many self-interests. Some people actually might want the extra lane if they're commuting to Newport. Some people might think it's a good idea, instead of taking a side or a position, that they should just basically not take a position. So we hear two different thoughts here, which makes this even more confusing to me.
But if it hasn't been brought to them as a board, then we're
Well,
only...
he made it sound like it was, though, so.
There are RHA board members.
We do have some RHA board members here, if any would like to.
Well, my name is
Please come to the microphone, sir.
Thank you.
Isn't he the president? This guy should be president.
He's the president.
My name is Gary Stewart, and I'm the new president of the RHA. And I can state categorically that no proposal was ever made to the board as far as a position. What we had was a presentation from OCTA a couple meetings ago, and it was just for general information purposes. So Mr. Nittickman, I think, would be mistaken in his recollection about that. We would be more than happy to take a look at this. I think the board needs to at least address the issue in some manner. Whether we agree with you or not, I can't speak for the board. But if we could get something from RCSD, we'd be glad to take a look at it. Thank you.
Sir. Well, it just appears that, as you stated, Mr. Tabuada, unless the response, a response, is submitted, received by the 17th before the midnight hour, they will not be required to respond back.
I believe that's correct.
And so, in essence, even with the best of intentions, if their meeting of the RHA begins at 7 p.m. and they conclude at 9 p.m., they may agree that they would like to join in a response, but they may not have the opportunity to digest whatever we may or may not compose. And so it could jeopardize the submission of a response. And I'm just throwing that out there so that if there is going to be any decision to make a response to OCTA, it would appear that either you require them to respond or you don't. And if you don't require them to respond, you know it with your eyes wide open that they're not required to do anything.
And they can have their own response as well. So we have a...
Let me ask the questions first,
Sure.
then we can have the
Yeah.
public
Hi,
speak.
I'm Ralph for debating.
Ralph, just 1 second. Mr. Kovacevic, let's say we come out with our response and we're categorically opposed to the EIR. We have 7,000 pages of objections. What does that mean? They say, thank you so much, it's going to go through anyway. Is that what we have?
Well, that remains to be seen. The point is that if you submit your comments before the end of the comment period, you're going to get a written response to those comments. So at least you'll have some written response to look at. You'll know where you stand. You'll know where the EIR preparer stands in relation to your specific comments. And then, of course, you can go from there. As Henry suggested, you can continue to make comments until the project is actually approved. But they're going to be on record as having committed to certain responses to your particularized concerns that are made before the end of the comment period, and that's the advantage to getting something in before the cutoff date.
Right. Well, before asking you or letting you speak, when I looked at the scope of service, and I have it on my iPad right here, the 500 feet is the thing that I'm really concerned about, because in there, is it an EIR? That's the correct term. They say 500 feet, and I don't know what 500 feet means, because Hopkinson School, from the edge of the current freeway, is 600 feet. So if they're defining it by where their property is or the new lane, this very well could actually affect kids in our community who are trying to play with noise, with pollution, with congestion, and they've been going through their own school project right now. I think we do have to ask them those questions and get their response back. So that's where I'm coming from right now, is I'm not sure how that EIR is phrased and what 500 feet mean, but there's definitely a lot of kid activity, including, it's not our jurisdiction, but the Seal Beach park right there, and even our little triangle where the bus stop is within 500 feet of an off-ramp. And again, is an off-ramp included in the 500 feet? I don't know. But that's kind of where I'm coming from, is for the safety of our kids, I think we do need to put out a response that, if anything, questions their EIR and that they do enough due diligence to know what the impact of this project is. Ralph.
Hi, I'm Ralph Artabadian, RHA board member, and I'm head of the traffic committee. We actually have been discussing that issue of whether to take a position and file a formal response via email within the committee. Not the full board isn't aware of it. And it's possible that the board, if we concur on some position, we could take that to the full board via email and get a response prior to our board meeting next Tuesday. I just wanted to let you know that is an option for us. We don't have to wait until our formal board meeting for the full board of directors to approve a position, but we're still discussing and debating what that position should be. And I think I'll just add that Bill Geckler and I both probably agree that the EIR might not adequately address the potential for a backup at the county line, particularly given the projected increase in traffic. Presumably, the existing traffic volumes wouldn't cause that backup, right? Because the existing capacity is there, and we're actually adding capacity on our side of it. The problem is if their projections, and their projections are based on some very large population growth in our region, if their projections are correct, and the capacity on the LA County side doesn't increase, then it's clearly possible and almost predictable that you'll get a very large backup there. So it is something we're concerned about, and I can't say any more than that. Thank you.
Mr. President, members of the board, obviously, like a city like Seal Beach, who has larger resources than we do, have compiled quite an extensive report that they're sending in or have already sent in. It would be an enormous task for me to prepare such a document in the time frame that is left. What I could do with their permission would be to incorporate their report by reference and simply say that we are in concert with Seal Beach's submittal document for those areas that include pollution, noise, and backup at the junction of the three freeways, and simply make that be the district's position, if that in fact is what you want us to do. Because otherwise, we could spend an awful lot of time trying to duplicate something that they've already done a tremendous job of compiling.
I sort of like that idea because and I'm not saying we shouldn't do this, but I believe they made the comment that, if I understood it right, that alternative 3 they're against, and that they would only approve, or that their statement was that they want alternative 1 as opposed to 2 and 3. So I'm not really sure that, unless we all agree that we want to do that, that we could even join them in that statement.
Mr. Miller, could you add some clarity on our understanding whether or not it's option 1?
I would definitely recommend that Henry follow up with staff, but I don't think we've agreed to alternative 1. We've just said we don't agree with alternative 2 and 3 because we consider the document incomplete, and we don't want to say we agree with anything till we fully understand it, and we don't think we have enough to fully understand it yet. But we do know, from what we do know so far, we do object to alternatives 2 and 3.
Right, that was my understanding.
So we did not say in our letter that we agreed with alternative 1.
Good.
Now, I can't say, I haven't read the whole 200 pages, so I can't say for sure what that says, and I can't say for sure what the transmittal letter will say yet because it hasn't been developed. I think the city intends to take it to Caltrans on Monday.
Thank you.
Question of our council. Is it too late to also ask for a continuance? I know it's already been extended once. Does anyone have a feel for, are they willing to grant another continuance so we have more time?
That rarely happens.
Okay.
Well,
Mr. Rips, what do you think?
I like Mr. Tabwada's idea about referencing the Seal Beach document. I think that I actually think that it's somewhat irresponsible that they have a plan that ends at the county line, and putting the impact on the communities, right, our community, Rossmoor, Los Alamitos, Seal Beach. I think that there are definite issues with pollution and traffic that I think we have to address, and I think that we should, with or without RHA at this point, I think that we should put out a statement. Mm-hmm. I'm not so sure that it's not a bad thing that we issue a statement and then RHA also issues a statement. I'm not sure strategically that it's better to have it all in one, or if we have two. But I think that we should come forth with a statement on behalf of Rossmoor.
Mr. Maynard, you brought up a good point. Hopkinton School geographic location right now is 600 feet from the freeway or the sound wall?
From the current lane of the freeway. Okay. And by the way, it also affects, if you take that same thing and go along the 605, which is part of their project that I have a little map on my iPad. It also affects Lee, and it also affects Weaver. And if you actually look at this map, which is from the EIR website, proposed project area, the community of Rossmoor has just as much geography involved, because it's literally from the Catella Freeway off-ramps all the way into the 405 South. We have the same affected area, is actually bigger than most of the other communities who have put out their point of view.
Oh, without a doubt.
So I am for Mr. Tabwada hopefully being able to tag team, or at least use some of the resources at Seal Beach. I agree with that. But I do believe where you're going with this is we should also make an addendum of, it seems that there are other schools, neighborhoods, children within our community that this affects, and it's nowhere in their EIR, the effect of that. So that's one of the things that I would ask that we add, not just to the Seal Beach part, but at least those three schools which seem dangerously close to the affected area, if not in the affected area.
I'm wondering if LAUSD is going to respond.
Yeah, I was thinking we should.
That's a good,
We
yeah,
should
very
reach
good
out
point.
to them. They were not listed once as an affected agency. In the document, as you can see right there, Rossmoor is mentioned gazillion times. I mean, we are in there constantly when they talk about the community of Rossmoor. So I definitely think that someone should take it to the superintendent and see if she has an opinion, and maybe that actually helps as well. And again, for me, at this point, it's not picking an opinion of option 1, 2, or 3. It's, we think you have more due process that you need to answer before you even consider taking this project on.
All right. Do you want to frame a motion? We've had a second and we've had a discussion.
Well, we also have two other people that I would like to see where their point of view is coming from.
Mr. Kaler, I think I've heard from Mr. Casey. I don't want to take away from your thunder.
No, I think that I think what Mr. Maynard has expressed is are very, very valid points. I think it's important to not recreate the wheel. I think what the city of Seal Beach has discussed is valid, but we also need to include additional items that they're not concerned about so much, which would be the community of Rossmoor and the elementary schools that are in the Los Alamitos School District. So I think maybe there's like a combo motion where Mr. Tabwada uses some of the response from the city of Seal Beach, as well as has to craft an additional item or thought process or discussion topics that they need to at least include or research further.
Well, Mr. President, members of the board, our cover letter can certainly cover everything that's been said here tonight. I was only making reference to the Seal Beach document as a more expository document that would require them to respond in much greater detail than just to a cover letter from us on 1 or 5 or 6 points. Because and I'm assuming again that I can get their approval to use them as the conduit for our submittal. But I'll call the city manager tomorrow and see if she's receptive to having us use their document as a resource for our submittal.
Councilman Miller or Ms. Kearney or Shelley, I can't pronounce your last name, I apologize, but have you folks reached out to LASD, to the Los Alamitos Unified School District to see if they have a position or will take a position or won't take a position?
I can check tomorrow. I don't believe we have, but we can check tomorrow. I would only state that your schools are our schools.
Well, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, exactly.
So I imagine there's children in College Park East that attend the Los Alamitos Unified
Hopkinson
School.
District.
Hopkinson.
Half of our children attend Hopkins, about half.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll ask tomorrow. I'm not sure.
Yeah, make sure whoever you're working with adds Hopkinson to your list too, maybe.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
It affects your
I'm not sure
district
how.
four.
I'm not sure how the consultant's gone on that, so that's why definitely Henry needs to review that with our Assistant City Manager and Public Works Director, Sean Crumby, would be the person to talk to.
Okay.
Mr. Casey, any further comments?
Only to say that, and Director Maynard brought this up, that with the wraparound effect of the project, not only on the 405, but the 605, we're probably more affected than most any community when you factor in the two choke points, the one on the 405 that we discussed, and also northbound on the 605, we have a similar situation. So to me, it's imperative that we piggyback in some manner on this, just based on the huge impact that we face in our community.
Mr. Maynard, do you want to make a motion then?
Okay, I make a motion that we direct our general manager to consultant to draft the appropriate document, working with Seal Beach and the resources they have. But in addition to that, adding in the schools that are affected in our community as well as Seal Beach. And I also would direct an outreach to the Los Alamitos School District as well.
Does your motion include, Director Maynard, the RHA?
My motion is also that this is our initiative. We would love for them to come up with their own or agree with us, but we would love them to take a position as well.
And the reason why I think that's important is because, as you pointed out, this document over here to my left is replete with references to the community of Rossmoor. It lists all the cities, all the affected cities, and the community of Rossmoor. Nowhere does it say the RCSD, nor where does it say the RHA. So in their minds, they're looking at us as tag team. I mean, they see us as two parts of the same puzzle, you know. So that's why I think it's appropriate for them to be included as part of this.
I do as well. However, because of the timing and the deadline, I don't want that to get in the way of us putting out that opinion and that
That's understood.
document.
That's understood.
Okay, that's the
To
reason
the
why.
extent that we can make it happen.
Exactly.
If you direct me, I'll try to make it happen.
I know that was a very convoluted motion, but
I have a qualifying point. Does your motion include that the response be filed with OCTA and/or Caltrans before the drop deadline, which is the 17th?
obviously that was implied, that we
Okay.
have, that
Just so we have
timing's
clarity.
an issue. We have clarity that we have the 17th fastly approaching.
Indeed.
All right, who wants to second the
I'll
motion?
second it.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Okay, can we just get a 30-second soundbite, what exactly that motion is?
That motion is for Henry to work with Seal Beach, put together a robust document that also includes the schools within the Rossmoor community, to have it done by the 17th, and to make every single effort to work with RHA. But at the same time, a deadline's a deadline.
Perfect.
Basically, it's a
Better?
critique of the...
Better, yes, thank you.
Right.
All right.
Exactly.
Well, and just why is it better that we are co-authoring a document as opposed to both organizations, agencies sending in their own document?
I don't know that if we collaborate on email, listening to Mr. Vardabedian for a moment, that we will, number one, get a consensus for the RHA. It's presumptive we will. But then again, they could take a different point of view.
Right. I'm just asking strategically, even if we had agreed, why it might be better to have it come in, that means they have to answer twice. I mean, they have to see that there's two separate bodies that are actually sending forth a concern, and I'm not sure strategically that is better. I understand we want RHA to participate, but I'm just not so sure that actually should be part of this motion. I mean, I would encourage them to take a stand, but I don't know if it's part of the letter that we want to put forth.
I follow what you're saying. I don't know how they'll interpret. OCT will interpret it.
What does our legal counsel think?
Yeah, that's what I want to know,
What was that?
what our counsel thinks of that.
Kovacevic.
There's a hand in the back of the room, I don't know.
Just a minute, sir.
I think you can go either way. There's merit to both sides. If there's two separate letters, obviously there's two separate things that they have to go and respond to. There may be different concerns, slightly different concerns. If we do it together, it also has its benefits in terms of appearance, but that's
Unity,
about it. Really.
Strength in numbers?
Well, there could be strength in numbers in either way. You're together on one letterhead, or you have, ultimately if there's a lawsuit, I can see it in the pleadings already. This was opposed on this ground by, now there's a whole list of agencies, and now you're listed separately because you provided separate comment letters, and maybe that's where the strength in numbers comes in, because there's separate agencies acting on their own volition.
That's kind of my sense. I mean, that was sort of where I was.
Okay. I'm going to revise the motion that we move forward as...
Without RHA.
Can't hear you.
Without objection, you're going to revise your own motion?
I'm sorry?
Are you going to revise your own motion?
Yes.
Okay.
You've lost me.
No,
Okay.
You made a comment. We're just...
Okay.
Go on.
I'm rewording the motion that we're directing our acting general manager consultant to draft the appropriate document with reaching out to Seal Beach community, reaching out to Los Alamitos School District as well, and incorporating the schools in our neighborhood that are affected by this, and moving forward with that document that would be signed by the president of the RCSD.
It's up to Mr. Casey. Do you want to second that?
I'll second it once again.
Okay. Mr. Rips, any further comment?
I'm good.
Yellow?
Except that Ron's stealing all the seconds tonight. It's not nice.
All right, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposing the motion?
You have a member of the public who,
Mr. Burgess, you want to come up? I forgot about you. I apologize.
That's okay. Dave Burgess, Rossmoor resident. I'm assuming that notebook there is the Caltrans document that's 400 or 500 pages. In addition to that, Seal Beach is, I believe, the lady said that they had composed like a 500-page response to that. I'm concerned that the RCSD would reference that document by incorporation in the short time frame, and maybe their cover letter might conflict with it. I don't agree with what they're saying, or disagree. I don't know what it says. I'd just be real leery of covering it and referencing it by incorporation or whatever the right words are.
I think we're going to have to, given the time constraints, leave it to Mr. Tabota's point of view. I think we'll have his heart and his mind in it, and will do what is best. He'll be able to consult with the staff at Seal Beach, and I hope LAUSD has at least looked at it, will have a point of view.
Right.
If not, they'll jump on with both feet before the weekend and come up with a view.
No, I agree with that, and I think going forward, I think that to have somebody from College Park and Mr. Miller from Seal Beach and jointly bounce ideas off each other informally or formally, and either have a joint response, or probably has to come up from both organizations, RCSD, maybe RHA, and the city of Seal Beach, and maybe College Park East. I don't know which entities, but I think, just kind of get on the same page as, well, we agree with one, or we don't agree with two, or agree, whatever the scenario is, just have it a discussion on it, and if it makes sense to all parties, have a kind of the same message going to Caltrans. Thank you.
Okay. I have one other item to ask the board and manager if we could take out of order. We have Mr. Dickson, who's been sitting very patiently for an hour and 15 minutes. And it's item
H3.
H3.
Oh, yeah.
Would anyone be opposed to advancing H3 so that we can accommodate Mr. Dickson? I appreciate Mr. Miller and Shelley and Ms. Kearney.
Thank
your
you.
attendance this
Thank
evening,
you.
your,
Yeah, I'm good.
significant contributions to our understanding tonight. Anyone opposed to moving H3 up? No? Mr. Rips, you're okay?
I'm sorry, no, I'm fine.
Mr. Gaylor?
No
All right.
problem.
Mr. Talbot, would you like to address H3, please?
Mr. President, members of the board, I'm asking for you to provide me with direction regarding requests from R.F. Dickson, who is our street sweeping contractor, for an amendment to their agreement. On June 14th, the board approved an amendment to R.F. Dickson Company for a new 3-year term. The contractor requested an increase of 3.1% for the first year, stating that they had held their rates for the previous 3 years. Instead, the board approved no increase for the first year and a CPI increase for the third year. In May of this year, the contractor requested by letter, which is attached, a 2.5% increase. General counsel, and that's your previous general counsel, opined that the district was not obligated to amend the agreement and that the contractor was obligated to perform as provided for in the agreement. Mr. Steve Dickson, president of the firm, has asked that this matter be brought to the board for your consideration of their request. It should be noted that the street sweeping contract with the county fully reimburses the district for costs incurred with the contractor, and Mr. Dickson wishes to address the board on this matter. I think the point that maybe it was missed during the previous approval of this contract in last year was that they had held their pricing for a number of years, and Mr. Dickson can address that issue as well.
Mr. Dickson.
Good evening, President and Directors. My name is Steve Dickson. I'm the president of R.F. Dickson Company. We've been here since the early 1970s, working with the district prior to becoming a CSD, and I've enjoyed all the years together with it here. When the CSD was having a problem, everybody was tight on finances, we held tight. And when we amended our agreement here for the 3 years, I don't know if it was an oversight or it was how it happened, but what we did was we did not receive an increase after the 3 years, and then it didn't state what happens in the second year. It just said CPI. Part of our negotiations was CPI each year. It's just left that part open in the second year. So that means we're into number 4 now with no increase. We're here every day or every time like we're supposed to be. We are going to be going forward, and all we're asking is for a 2.5% increase just to cover this last 4 years.
And that comes out to what in dollars per year?
It's a $50,000 contract, $52,000, so 4% of that would be about $2,000, is that?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Have any thoughts?
Well, it's probably hard to ask for a price increase, isn't it?
It always is. That's why we've held it back for this period of time, let all the cities work through their issues, everything else, with waiting for the sales tax dollar to finally bottom out and start back up. We all got into the barrel together because we're all part of this big team, and we did that. And so what we've done now is it hurts us not asking for it also with prices increasing. Right. And so we finally just asked for a very small one just to help us out a little bit.
What is your biggest factor in profitability? I mean, I know that it's a tough economy, obviously petroleum costs, but what is that one big contributing factor that hurts you right now?
There's multiple right now. Healthcare is number one, but cost of equipment right now is going up about 8 to 9% per year. Doesn't slow down. Piece of equipment that 10 years ago was $165,000 is now $308,000 per truck. We have 8 to 10 trucks in here from time to time when leaf season comes up. Fuel costs, we are on natural gas now, so thank goodness that's taken a small dip. But the repair parts that go into those pieces of equipment haven't. Those continue to go up. Our employees get increases that goes with it, and that comes right out of the bottom line. We've got to retain all the people that we have. And we're all in this together. And so that's why I just asked for not the 6.7% that's passed by, just only 2.5 of that has changed in the CPI for this period of time.
How old is your current fleet that's of machinery that's going through Rossmoor right now?
Right now, it'll run 3 to 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah. We're rolling, we have a standard order that we have to replace on. We had to sell off all of our diesel equipment because of AQMD new rules, the fleet rules, and that doubled the cost of the equipment during that period of time. We don't have a choice. It's a $10,000 a day fine per truck that's in here. So everything that rolls through here is AQMD legal, natural gas powered, and that is just, the expense is substantially more in those, and engine life cycles are almost half. And so our costs have really gone up in repair parts. And
Well, based on your comments, I think the 2.5% doesn't sound unreasonable at all, but what are you proposing in the following years? So you're asking for 2.5% now, years 2 and 3 or whatever we agree to would be like a CPI increase, or?
That's all we're looking for. We just wanted to stay
Just
up.
for 1 year, 2.5%?
That's all I'm
Period.
looking for. Yeah, this is a year 2 that's starting right now.
Correct.
2.5%. I'm not sure where CPI is going to be at the end of year 3. I just don't know
Understood,
what's
but
gonna go.
the way I read the document, it said nothing about year 2, and year 3 said CPI, so I'm guessing that the next year, if we did this, it would be CPI.
That's what I propose, yes.
Okay, I just want to understand that.
Yeah, that's our standard is CPI. That's what we pretty much stay with.
Sure.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah,
what
that's
we'd
fine.
stay-
Mr. Kovacevic, it's probably not fair to ask you, but you haven't looked at this contract, have you? Would you like to look at it?
Good, if you like.
I mean, in essence, not now.
Looked at it briefly, honestly, but I didn't look at it in detail.
Right. There seems to be a need for me for clarification, so that the board is clear on for future years, assuming that tonight there's agreement for an increase of the 2.5%, that for future years it's defined real clear that we're not obligated, or
Okay.
it's sufficiently explicit for you as new counsel.
I'd have to take a look.
Right.
Okay. Want me to take a look?
If you can do it in a couple minutes, I don't have an opposition. I don't want to put you on the spot. Maybe you want to
No,
pass on
no
this for a couple
problem.
minutes?
As long as Henry can find it for me.
Do you mind if we pass on this for a few minutes? And
What's that?
maybe take some comments from the audience?
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you.
There's not a prior
That's the amended, restated agreement.
Dave Burgess, and I listened to the gentleman from Dickson Company, and if he's held his prices for 3 years and he's asking for 2.5%, it's probably not even cover his incremental costs. I'd say we give him 2.5%, 2.5%, 2.5% for the next 3 years. Thank you.
You said we should do 2.5% for the next 3 years, or it could be? There was the board action. Yeah. How about one? See here. This is the latest. There's good. Yeah, he has that. See, that's the current. But I think it's a lie. Right. Guess what?
Yes, Mr. Brown.
Hi. My name is Ken Brown. I live in Rossmoor. And I was going through the agenda on the web, and I came across a couple of letters in there. One of them, I think, was the document request, written on May 29th, 12-page document request. Really well-written letter. And then there was a 4-page transmittal letter with it, too. Just copies in there for reference, I think. And I can't imagine what those letters cost us. You know, at first I can't see why we had to hire a law firm to write them. You know, we have a staff that should be able to prepare a document request. No idea what that cost.
Sure,
but here we have a guy who's been performing good service. They're always there. And when they pass the house and it doesn't get clean, they come back. And we're arguing over not even a cost of living increase. I can't believe it.
Let me respond to your question on the letters. Initially, there was a letter submitted by Mr. Tabuada in conjunction with the accountant, and it wasn't met with a response. Now, I'll give you a thumbnail sketch, since you brought it up. We're going to be getting the majority of what we requested from the county.
Well, that brings up another point. What you're going to get is irrelevant.
Well, that's neither here nor there. That's your point of view. And I appreciate your point of view. Okay. But right now, can we just go back to this item?
Well,
we're not in public forum right
the amount of money.
Sir, we've heard you. This is not public forum. I haven't cut you off.
You get my point.
Let's
Thanks a lot.
respect. Let's go back to this item. Thank you. Have you reviewed it, Mr. Kovacevic?
Yes. Actually, there isn't an amendment that's done already. We have to prepare an amendment that memorializes these terms. And so the term would be, as stated, the 2.5% and then CPI in the ensuing years. That's correct.
All right. The only thing I found was on page 4, which is a prevailing wage, paragraph 3.3.3.
This is in the existing agreement that's currently in effect.
I presume.
Yeah, it's June 2011 is the date on it.
It's attachment 1 in our agenda material.
Right. It's dated June 14th, 2011. So this agreement is currently in effect.
Right. So the only thing I could infer is 3.3.3 in discussion about prevailing wage is where one could make an argument for a CPI adjustment. I'm reading liberally. I may be wrong, so that's why I defer to you.
The prevailing wage provision has nothing to do with the amount of compensation the contractor is going to receive under the agreement. That's just his obligation. He has to eat the difference if prevailing wage goes up in excess of his CPI or whatever the other formula is used for his increase.
You know, this is a company that has served our community very well for the last, I can't even remember, since I was on the board.
You said since the 70s.
Yes. And, I mean, he's not asking for an astronomical amount of money. It's a piddling amount of money compared to the amount of money that this board has spent in the past on things that are not really worthwhile. I don't even think it's worth discussing. You should just give him his 2.5 and hope he doesn't go much higher, because if I was in his business, I certainly would.
Do we have an opinion yet? Do we have an opinion yet, sir? Anything?
Yeah, as I stated, we'd have to draft an actual amendment because this agreement that's in the packet, attachment 1, is the agreement that's currently in effect, even though it's entitled amended and restated agreement. That's why I thought it was the agreement that's before you tonight. The only thing that's before you tonight is to approve that change in terms, which we would then memorialize in a very short one-page document.
Yep.
So, President Coletta, where are we right now?
Bottom line is we have an opinion from BBK as well, which echoes what Mr. Kovacevic said, and that is we're not bound to give him one, a 2.5% CPI. But if we agree to do that this evening, which was within our purview, it is best business practice to have Jenkins and Hogan draft an agreement that reflects what we did tonight.
Okay.
And it makes clarity to the board for future years, whether it be next year or 3 years out, if there's any discussion on this item, because it is absent in attachment 1, anything about our need to have to agree to it. And in as much as I personally think 2.5% is not a lot of money. Gasoline has gone up, cost of water has gone up, everything's gone up, tires go up for trucks and vehicles alike. I just want to have clarity and do business right, and that's why I bring in counsel for an opinion. And I don't want to personally, I could take the position, I don't have to do anything. He's stuck with it. I don't think we want to do that, but I think we should know for future years that the document is deficient. So what we do tonight, we're doing it with our eyes wide open. So I would make a motion to provide Dickson and Company a 2.5% CPI increase for fiscal calendar year 2012-2013. Part of my motion, Part B of it, is to direct council through the manager to direct a contract that reflects what we've done tonight and discusses whether or not we should be obligated or whether Mr. Taboada should enter into discussion with Mr. Dickson whether this board should even entertain CPIs in future years or something different. Does that make sense, Mr. Kovacevic? One is to have a contract reflects what we're doing tonight, but also give guidance to the managers to if that contract is going to be narrow to this year, this fiscal year alone, or it should speak to future years.
Okay, we're going to need direction on whether or not you want a CPI increase to take effect automatically in ensuing years, and that means fiscal year 2013, 2014, beginning in that year.
Which you have already approved.
Right. Correct.
Prior board meetings.
Correct.
Yeah. So that would have to be included in this agreement. It doesn't recite to that at all.
Well, he's requesting an amendment to the compensation term, so you can decide how you want to amend the term of compensation.
My motion would be to amend the contract to increase the compensation as we have done in past board meetings and have echoed tonight in my motion, assuming each of you agrees by a second and the motion's approved.
Can you just repeat that? Can you repeat that, please?
Sure. My motion is to amend the contract to include a 2.5% cost of CPI, cost performance increase, whatever the term of art is, for the fiscal year 2012, 2013, and 2013, 2014, since it was something this board has agreed to on prior board meetings.
We agreed to the CPI is that what you're saying, for 2013, 2014?
Correct.
Exactly.
Then I second.
You second it.
It's a flat 2.5% increase for this
year.
coming fiscal year.
Right.
2.5%, not 2.5% CPI. It's 2.5%
No, it's 2.5%
increase.
for this year, and then he said a CPI for next year.
Right, and then beginning the next year, it would be CPI increase.
Right. That was the
It would
motion.
be increasing the
So
base
the
rate,
motion
which
is
includes this 2.5% increase.
So the
That's
motion
it.
is just a one-year 2.5% increase.
Right.
No other impact anything else, right?
Except that the next CPI increase that takes effect is built upon a rate that's now been increased by 2.5%, as opposed to whatever CPI.
That's it.
That's implied, yeah.
Right. It's not much, but there is a difference.
Yeah. Well, no, you wouldn't.
Nothing is implied.
Like, you wouldn't do 2.5% of like a
Mr. Rips, do you
term that's
understand? Or
10
do you
Yeah, I
need to
know.
restate the motion?
I'm good, I think.
You're good?
I think we're good.
All right.
Yes, we got it.
Any further discussion on the motion?
No.
All in favor of amending the contract and the motion as stated? Aye.
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 Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Kovacevic, Mr. Dickson, for your patience with us. Now we will go to the reports to the board. Mr. Taboada, would you like to take it from there?
Mr. President, members of the board, this is item D1, which is a report from the general manager on governance. And I'm asking you to provide direction on future governance initiatives. I'm going to cover a number of topics here, some of which have been asked for during public comment. Hopefully this will address those issues for the public. First, I'm going to cover Attorney General opinions. The district has received an Attorney General opinion regarding the district's ability to contract for police services with the Orange County Sheriff's Department. County Council has opined that the district could only contract for enhanced services, but that the sheriff could not withdraw core services in favor of a contract with the district. The Attorney General opinion states otherwise, in essence giving the district the prerogative to pursue such a contract in furtherance of an application to LAFCO for latent powers for police services. A second Attorney General opinion, not requested by the district but by the San Bernardino LAFCO, asked if an unincorporated territory of more than 150 acres could be broken up into parcels of less than 150 acres and be annexed without approval or protest by residents and property owners. That opinion stated that such an action was not permissible under the law. This opinion basically prevents the annexation of the Rossmoor shopping district from being divided from Rossmoor and annexed by the city of Los Alamitos. I believe Mr. Annisman made a comment that there was no longer an RCSD sphere of influence, and I take exception to that. When the district was placed into the sphere of influence of Los Alamitos, they did not abolish the sphere of influence of the RCSD, which included the shopping district at the corner of Catella and Los Alamitos Boulevard. Moving on to Public Records Act request. The initial Public Records Act request was submitted to the county in an effort to obtain financial data that would validate that Rossmoor is a donor community and not a drain on the county. The request was prepared by the Harvey Rose Company, was closed out by the county, stating that the county did not possess the records being requested. Therefore, a second Public Records Act request was authorized by the board in consultation with the law firm of Kaufman Group, which is a more comprehensive request which mirrors the information compiled for the comprehensive final analysis in furtherance of the district's incorporation attempt in 2008. The county was reminded that it could produce financial data in 2008, that it could do so again, and that a reply from the county is pending. Well, that reply, in fact, has been received. And Emily, if you'll give the board that response from the county CEO's office, it basically states that out of the 64, I believe, items of request for information, all but 6 have been responded to by saying that the information is available and will be available for the district to inspect after July 11th.
Can I interrupt you right there for just
Sure.
a moment? In your view, when you take in mind the Public Record Act requests submitted via counsel Steve Kaufman and Associates, compared to the Public Record Act request yourself and Mr. Rose and Associates submitted initially, is the data that was requested basically the same?
The first request was very general in terms of the information that was being requested. It asked for financial data which would basically give the district the financial data necessary for us to formulate an opinion about whether or not we were in fact a donor or a drain on the county. And it was general enough so that they could basically have latitude to decide what fit the information that was requested. And they basically said none of it was available. They just closed it out and said, oh, by the way, we'd like to help you, but we got a budget to deal with and we got other issues facing us, so we don't know when we're going to get to it. That's when this board then directed me to initiate a comprehensive data request of 60-some items, which pretty much mirrored the information that was produced in 2008 for the comprehensive financial analysis. And we framed it in that way so that they could not say that that information could not be obtained. Because they did it once, they could do it twice. It was just a question of whether they wanted to do it or not. So as I said, we received a letter this week from the CEO's office of the county saying that of the 64 items, I think, that we requested, 58 of them are available for review. I'm conferring tomorrow with the Kaufman Group and with Harvey Rose Company to go over those responses and see which ones they do not say they can provide information for. Then we'll need to visit the county and basically go through those records as they've been prepared and make copies and then submit those records for analysis by the Harvey Rose Company to determine whether or not they're adequate, factual, and basically provide the information we requested.
And
on those items that they said they have no information, then we'll have to determine whether or not we want to pursue that further. Because one of the pieces of information that comes to my mind was we requested financial data specifically for Rossmoor for animal care. And they said no data available. Well, you and I both know that we have received some data from the county regarding specific data for Rossmoor for animal care. So either they didn't ask the right person, or they don't know, that the right hand's not talking to the left hand. We may need to educate them about what information is available that they seem to think is not. So at some point then, we'll bring back to the board a strategy for how we pursue this once we know what the information provides us. Moving on. What you have in front of you is that response from the county. And if you look through that, you'll see that by and large, they're saying the information is available. We'll have to determine if in fact it does meet our request.
Yep.
Moving on to the grand jury report. At the board special meeting on June 7th, 2012, we discussed the grand jury's report that was submitted to the district regarding special districts and whether or not they were efficient and should continue to exist. We believe that the report of the grand jury was an attempt to discount and discredit the efficiency and cost effectiveness of special districts in Orange County. The reaction to the report from special districts has been overwhelmingly negative and with expressions of disappointment and outrage. In concert with our new general counsel, Mr. Kovacevic has prepared a response letter to that grand jury report. And Emily, if you'd pass that out to the board at the conclusion of this meeting, we're prepared to send that on to the grand jury as our response.
Can I ask a question before you go on with this? Since
Sure.
we're getting this. What you're sending them, is it fairly close to what we discussed previously when we went through all the items and sort of went through each item one by one and you came up with a response?
Correct.
Okay, very good.
The tone of this response, however, is modified from what I presented to you. Mine was, shall we say, a little more emotional, given the the tone that they took with us.
Exactly.
General counsel was a little more polite in their response, but I think
moderated you.
But it's very appropriate. And we also have community members who have drafted responses that will go into the grand jury at the same time as ours, and they're a little bit more to the point.
Okay,
I like
very
what
good.
I'm reading so far.
You're a speed reader?
You could say that.
You know, attorneys, they take those courses, you know?
Yeah, right.
I like the responses. I'm well aware of what Mr. Tabata wrote. I don't disagree with it. It came from a different point of view, but this is, I think, appropriate.
We do have one additional grand jury report that deals with transparency, that meaning how the district displays its salary, benefits, overtime, and pension data. We did not participate with the grand jury when this report was first issued because our experience with the first one on special districts led to no, didn't influence their report whatsoever. So the report that they published basically said that the district was very lacking in its transparency with regard to how it publishes that particular data. The way that we currently display it is if you go on our website, you'll see an icon that shows the district's budget. If you drill down through that budget, you'll see the salary plan, which details the salary paid to employees by classification. It does not list specifically what the benefit package is, nor what the overtime is, because both of those are, particularly the benefits package, is in line with practically most agencies in the county of Orange. And the overtime is a minimal amount of our compensation package. We use overtime very sparingly. In fact, we adjust schedules to avoid the payment of overtime. And certainly, we have no pension costs. So we were painted with the same brush as every other district, saying, you know, we're not transparent. Well, the information that the Orange County Grand Jury used was the information we provide to the state every year as required by law. And so there was no attempt to hide the ball or not to display information, but they seemed to think that we were somehow not being forthcoming with what those figures were. Our response in concert with Jenkins and Hogan will be to prepare that response and basically say that we will comply with their recommendations to amend our website to include that data in a much more easily accessible fashion. It's not a difficult thing to do, but you know, it's something that if that's the state of the art with how we do this, then we're certainly going to comply with that. Moving on to enforcement of the district's policy. As you know, recently we had an incident with regard to tree removal in this community, and we attempted to work with Public Works staff to try to come to agreement on the division of responsibility for the maintenance of trees in Rossmoor, and more specifically with regard to the removal of trees. And the meeting between staffs was, I think, very satisfactory in that the county was very willing to reach an agreement with the district with regard to the manner and method for removal of trees, which the county felt posed an issue of safety for the community. Fortunately, County Council was present at that meeting and opined that whatever agreement was reached among the respective staffs, and we've had a previous agreement with them on safety trims, that it would require Board of Supervisors approval, and that it would be problematic for us to get that approval if we took it to the Board of Supervisors. That kind of left us with nowhere to go. And so now I'm in discussion with Mr. Kovacevic. We're going to basically formulate a request to County Council, perhaps asking for guidance as to how we resolve the issue. Because if we can't go to the Board of Supervisors and we can't reach agreement with respective staffs, then how do we resolve this issue moving forward with the maintenance of our urban forest? As a last item, I'd like to indicate that, actually that is my last item. I think that covers just about everything that this board and this staff have been engaged with regard to governance for the last 2 or 3 months.
Well, I'm sure the community and all of us on the board would welcome a resolution on the tree policy with the County of Orange view that they've taken versus if they will not, what our options are, as well as I would hope this board would join in with me tonight in directing the manager to initiate Jenkins and Hogan and directing a letter to the county council requesting that they change their view on our abilities to contract with any entity, given the Attorney General opinion that's been published opines that we are within our right to contract with another agency.
Mr. Kovacevic reminds me that we had a discussion prior to this meeting, and that he has shared with me his draft letter to County Council regarding the Attorney General's opinion, and we'll be sending that along with the idea of asking them to back off their position so that as a next step, this board can then direct us to meet with Sheriff Hutchins and request a proposal for sheriff services.
Excellent.
And on the urban forest issue, just as a personal point. This is very troubling to me that the OCPW has taken the stance that they have a provision to override any of our decisions based on what they're terming community safety issues. That seems to me like a big catch-all bucket that they can use for anything. It's a community safety issue so therefore the tree comes out. It doesn't, I mean, that could be anything, and I'm using a specific example. There's got to be a 80-year-old tree sitting on a tiger tail about 3 houses away from Director Maynard's house that a resident has turned there on the driveway and made it facing into the street, and they've hacked out the roots, and it's very, very clear that for them to finish pouring this on the driveway, the tree's going to have to go. And the base of this tree is literally bigger than that podium there, the circumference of it. And I'm just curious how this is going to go, how this is going to go down and when that tree is going to be taken out.
Well, the thing that hasn't been resolved in my mind is that we have provided the county with all of the documentation, which includes the ballot measure that was passed by this community, the Board of Supervisors resolution, which granted the district the powers of road commissioner and the responsibility for tree removal, the Public Works' own internal procedures, which state very specifically that Rossmoor is in charge of tree planting, trimming, and removal. And they have provided us with no documentation which gives them the authority to remove trees on the basis of safety. Now, no one is going to argue with whether or not a tree should be removed if it's obvious that the tree is causing a safety hazard. I've removed trees for that reason. Mr. Reynolds has certainly removed trees for that reason. But it's a question of giving us the opportunity to weigh in on that decision. As you may recall, they made the offer to have our respective arborists basically come to some agreement on that. And the next day, they ripped the tree out.
Yeah, it didn't work.
And if we could come to agreement, I think that's the best of all worlds. But if it's going to require the approval of the Board of Supervisors and they're not going to deal with it, or at least County Council thinks they're not going to approve it, that's where the catch-22 is for us.
Yeah, I don't like me to nitpick, but this is a beautiful canopy tree. It's not an invasive species. It's probably one of the original trees that was planted in the community
Silver
50, 60 years ago. And they've already just absolutely hammered and destroyed like 1/2 of the root structure on it. And so therefore that tree is more than likely going to be dying soon and going to have to be ripped out. And I'm just appalled that was allowed to happen. And the county will come in and then say, because it's a dead tree, oh, community safety, tree has to be removed. I can already kind of see this happening in my mind, and other things like this will not happen because the county is going to claim that they have community safety sitting in their back pocket. So that's all I have to say about that.
I join your concern. All right, thank you, Mr. Chabot. I'm sorry.
One last comment. Since we've long since bypassed the OC grand jury report, but I just wanted to make a couple comments since I attended an ISTOC meeting on June 14th where they discussed the responses they were going to make to the grand jury report, especially since there's a lot of water districts and sewer districts, a lot more than unincorporated areas. And first of all, their response, which I'm sure you know by now, is almost parallel to everything we had to say in terms of our responses. Although now that it's more moderate, I'm not sure if that's true or not, but I'm certain it must be. But there was a couple other items. They had a panel discussion and a couple of items that were sort of germane, and it's kind of a cliche to say you need to be proactive when you do things, but it's like the grand jury made a report about things that basically were just untrue. And so it was brought up, you need to be proactive in terms of letting your constituents know what it is you actually do and what you provide for them. I know we do that, but somehow when we make, in addition to making this report it seems to be we need to be proactive in not only making the report, but at the same time perhaps illuminating this more so the public is more aware than ever of what we do in terms of the services we provide and the like, so that the remaining doubters do not get their information from a grand jury report, but they get it from something we provide that has the honest truth about what we do.
Director Casey, there's one distinction that wasn't made, and I think they alluded to 37 special districts in a county of Orange.
Something like that.
I think we're the only one that televises their board meetings.
Yeah, well, agree.
Yeah,
well, I don't know. I thought there was more than that, but maybe that's true.
I don't believe so. Yeah, I've never seen the OCTA or the OCFA or the Vector Control District or the Sewer District or anybody else televise their meetings. What that brings to the public is, by televising these meetings, is that further on in this agenda is your budget, a public hearing on your budget.
Correct.
How much more transparency can you have than that? I mean, and how much more can the public ask about the service levels of this community?
I totally agree. We're very transparent. We put everything out there, but it's almost like when something like this is brought forth, and maybe it's because I'm paranoid, I don't know, but it seems like for this issue, maybe we need to go one step beyond and, take the step of publishing it in our local paper or something, in addition to our responses to the grand jury report. Just a thought.
Well, we'll put that response on our website for sure.
No, I understand you'll do that. All right, thank you.
Mr. Annisman, quickly.
As a former grand jury member, I found this report rather embarrassing, because I felt that this was a report that put together by people that had an agenda, that they wanted, they had made up their mind what they wanted the report's conclusion to be before they got into it. Yep. And that unfortunately happens sometime. It doesn't happen too often. I think the work of the grand jury, they do a good job, and I'm very proud of the time I spent on it. One more comment I just wanted to make. Two comments. I thought that the response by the council was really good. I think they did a fantastic job on that. One minor correction, not important, but on the responsibilities and duties of the district, one of them that was left out was the jurisdiction and maintenance of the signature wall, which includes the signage and any repairs that need to be made. So that's another thing that the district does, but that wasn't included.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
Mr. Anderson, I have a question for you, since you're the only person I know who's ever been on a grand jury. Did you get any direction? How do they actually come up with the topics that they wish? Because it just seems like you said that there was biases there. I couldn't help but think that someone might have pointed them that you need to discuss this. I mean, so how does that work?
It's really up to the panel members. They divide into several committees. This committee probably was a governmental committee. Mm-hmm. that looks into local governments and districts, and they now whether somebody pointed them, somebody, sometimes they get letters from the public, and they say, hey, look into special districts, they're no good or something, and so they may have had a bias going into it, so there's no standard way of them what they're going to investigate. It's strictly their own choice, their own interest, what they see in the newspaper. They may see something, but they also may bring in some agenda You know, somebody may have had a gripe against special districts and wanted to investigate them.
Yeah, I was just curious about how they actually start, okay, you're in the grand jury, now what? We need to do something.
Yeah.
So I was just curious how they actually start and say, we're going to go after this issue, this issue, this issue. And you said that there could be some letters coming in. Was there ever any staff, county people, who would come to these different committees and say, you know, you need to look into this?
No.
Nothing like that?
No, they don't want, they're not supposed to be influenced that way, you know.
Not supposed to?
Not supposed to, yeah. That doesn't mean it doesn't happen, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. Okay, thank you.
Briefly, Mr. Burgess, please.
Dave Burgess. I think the grand jury investigation, according to the newspaper article, started with the fallout from the city of Bell and people not being fully transparent. I think it just grew from there. That's what it said in our newspaper.
But that's a city, not a special district.
That's
I
not
don't see how that connects.
Transparency, overspending,
the
corruption.
Not the current AG, not the current one, but the one
Correct.
on the pension.
No, it just, they looked at Bell and someone probably went to grand jury and
that makes sense.
let's go after these other guys. They might be bad too.
I was just curious
Don't
about
know.
the special districts themselves.
All right, unless the board had any further comment on the reports to the board concerning governance, we'll move on to the CIP report.
So be it.
Hearing none, move forward. It's 9 o'clock.
Go for it.
We have a lot more to go.
I had a root canal this morning, so I'm having a little difficulty with enunciation. Mr. President, members of the board, this is a committee report of the CIP committee making recommendations on the project list and the proposed 2012-2013 capital improvement budgets. On June 21st of this year, the board met and discussed the status of the proposed Rush Park parking lot project. After discussion, the board voted to include a sum of $50,000 for the project in fiscal year 2012-2013 Fund 40 budget. This resulted in an out of balance fund balance in Fund 40. In order to reconcile this, a meeting of the Public Works Committee was scheduled to resolve the matter. The Public Works Committee met on June 29th to review the current state of the district CIP project list and Fund 40 budget. The committee made various recommendations for restructuring the project list to conform with the funds available in the program year and for there to be a modest carryover into the subsequent fiscal year. And these changes are detailed in the recap of that meeting, which is at your desk. Recommendations of the committee are based on are detailed in that recap, and they're based on current budget revenue estimates and a thorough review of the district's capital needs. Committee is requesting that the board's approval of their recommendations in order to close out the proposed fiscal year 2012-13 final budget, which will be discussed further along in this agenda. It's also pointed out that the project list and budget for Fund 40 may be revisited during the board's mid-year budget adjustment in the month of February or at any time by resolution of the board. So if you approve these, they're already included in the budget hearing proposal. If you don't, then we need to modify that during the budget hearing. Concludes my report.
All right, and that budget hearing is as item, is that
item F1.
F1. So this is just the proposal for the earmarking as outlined here.
Correct, sir.
And if any revisions would be made, it would be made during the hearing of F1.
Well, actually, you should make those revisions now so that we'll have some ability to see how that impacts your budget. I think a motion would be in order to get this thing in front of you so that we can, from the committee, so that we can have discussion.
Well, before a motion's frame, I wanted to articulate some comments. I appreciate the submission of the recap of the June 29, 2012 CIP meeting. he gave me some insight as to the moving things around, given we had a special meeting regarding Rush Park, and I see the reflections of that meeting impacting the June 29 meeting. But I'm still concerned about baseball field discussion for Rush Park to have a diamond, but necessarily with the inclusion of $35,000 of district money for this dustless dirt. I'm still concerned about it.
Mr. President, you voted on that item at a previous board meeting. There was a motion to discontinue that project, and the board voted to include it. So that's why it's there now.
Right, but it hasn't been approved for actual installation, but I'm still wanted to echo my response in that what's following up later on tonight is a discussion on policies regarding the use of parks, use of district property. And to me, it seems like this is the cart before the horse. And when that decision, as you say, was made, also what was said in past meetings, that this is just a placeholder. We're not going to spend the money. And if I remember correctly, Mr. Kaler brought the reservation up maybe 2 months ago. So I'm bringing it up again, and now we haven't spent the money. It's just a placeholder. But here's my concern. I understand the community residents around Rossmoor Park, and they want some reprieve. And the whole intent of installing a diamond in Rush Park is diamond number 1, and only as diamond number 1, is to get some reprieve. But my concern is I don't think that even this MOU, to the extent it withstands scrutiny, covers the concern I have. And that concern is that we don't duplicate at Rush Park what we have had for years at Rossmoor Park, which has taken so long for a meeting of the minds, meaning the league's board, the meeting of the Rossmoor residents around the park, a meeting of this board's ad hoc committee, all the effort you, Mr. Taboada, put in. I'm not personally satisfied that we're not going to duplicate the same issue. And in as much as you say, well, we've already approved this, you've approved a placeholder, but the money hasn't been spent. And all I'm trying to plant seeds is for discussion later on, is that we don't find ourselves back 2 or 3 years down the road with having short-sighted the analysis that goes into if there is going to be an installation of a diamond in Rush Park. And we didn't include a discussion as to why we're not going to duplicate what we've already had at Rossmoor Park. Because I don't think anybody wants that visited upon anyone.
Agreed, but I think one of the outcomes of our last meeting when we brought this up is that we have a new subcommittee or committee on park usage where they need to figure out how not to duplicate problems. When you say that this whole dustless thing is trying to reprieve a situation, what it's trying to do is take the limited parking, it's the transition in for a game, the transition out from what I'm aware of. Right. By having another usable diamond, one, if you actually look at the current diamond, it's not very playable to begin with anyway.
Here?
The one on this park here. So by having that as games played there, then it goes to this one, then it goes back, kind of alleviates the biggest issue, which is capacity. And capacity for parking, capacity that go in front of people's house, blocks people's driveways, et cetera. So I think the intent of this project, one, we do want to seek financial assistance from the softball league. And to your concern about capacity, we now have a new committee who hopefully will come up with the right recommendations to this board so we do not duplicate a problem and just make it, separated at 2 parks now with big problems.
Right, that's what I'm concerned about is that, okay, we put another diamond over there, and then what necessarily can happen is not spoken is that the league changes composition from season to season. The recession that may be necessarily affecting the economy doesn't translate the same to me to how it affects participation in the LAGSL. There's some they may say, oh, it does, but there's no objective broad-based study that necessarily says the economy affects the enrollment of LAGSL. So what happens is the league can grow and the league can have more games, practice games and actual games with different teams. And that's what I'm not hearing discussed, is how we're going to control that as well as an element for future years, for future seasons. So again, we don't have it visited upon us at Rush Park what has for decades been those that love baseball don't want to shut it down, neither do I, but we don't want to just shift the problem somewhere else a little bit to give them a temporary reprieve. Because I don't think they want that on their neighbor at Rossmoor Park. They wouldn't request that of themselves.
I think your concern is clearly well-founded. I mean, there's a history here of it. But I do think it is addressed, at least at Rossmoor Park, within this confines of this MOU, in terms of there is a limited amount of games that can be played through the course of a season. There is a limited amount of days. I mean, it does talk about that. So that league could grow, but they could still only have the amount of games that are listed within the confines of that MOU. I mean, the only way that can change is if the MOU gets back together with the community, our representatives, and the league. And I think it's very easy to add the same type of restrictions or whatever we want to use for Rossmoor Park in terms of its limitations on games and things like that as well. I'm sorry, Rush. I mean, the same thing that we did there can happen here as well. And I do think that this park, just on a different note, not that it's had the same usage level that the softball league has had at Rossmoor Park, but AYSO has been here for a long time, right. And it hasn't. I mean, when our kids were young, and there was 5, 6, I think several games going on at one time, the same type of problem. There really wasn't an issue because the parking lot, and there was ample parking around the park, that it didn't cause the same sort of turmoil or that's not the right word, but inconvenience to the actual neighbors around the park as it was at Rossmoor Park. And I think that it's shown that it can handle the capacity of activity a little bit better than the Rossmoor Park was.
What you're saying, Mr. Rips, is not only will AOISO in future years continue to practice here and play games here, which they should, but now we have another element, another organized team here as well. So the committee needs to look...
Not necessarily at the same time.
Well, I don't know that. That's why I'm bringing it up, so that if it isn't the case, then it isn't the case. But the committee needs to examine that, right, so that everybody is said, we've thought this out, these are the schedules, there's not an overlap. But the MOU you brought up, and we've had discussion for 3 or 4 months back when it first came up, and in as much I don't want to take away from it, there was a lot of work that went into it, and I don't have to say I was part of it, because I don't know the pain and the hours that went into it, and I don't mean to diminish the effort that went into it. But it is not a document that in and of itself is enforceable. I mean, we had comments from even admittedly people who participated in that committee that said, yeah, you could drive a truck through it. And so I don't lean too heavily on that MOU as going to be a control and as a document that can be incorporated by reference into a permit that would be issued by Mr. Taboato or another manager 4 months down the road. That needs to be looked at.
It's not enforceable by whom? Right, if we're issuing permits to organizations that are coming in, and there's an MOU that's there that we are using as our guidelines to issue the permit, we are, in fact, enforcing the MOU.
Well, I take a different point of view in that it is vague in some of the terms in the clauses that are in it, and I think it could have been written better. You have a new person who has never even seen it before, and I would appreciate if Mr. Kovacevic would review the MOU such that it does allow what the district wants to do, that is to use it as an enforcement tool on a permit that's issued, so that the terms are clear and there's no misunderstanding as to the terms.
Well, I'm not so sure, honestly, that any MOU with only a small fragment of our population is even something that we can get into, right? The MOU is, I mean, it was a handful of neighbors around Rossmoor Park. It's not the 10,500 representatives of our community that said, hey, this is an MOU we're buying into. And we're looking into it as an agreement that we are,
that's
that we
not what
think
I'm
is...
saying, Jeff.
On that discussion, gentlemen, we have a budget item that's about a baseball field, dustless dirt, and I can appreciate and I love the enthusiasm about the MOU, but should that be at a different discussion topic, and we can maybe get back on the point about the Rush Park field?
Well, I've made my point, and in as much as I'm reticent to join in on this item as a placeholder for $35,000 for dustless dirt, That's part of my concern, and that I'm not personally satisfied that other controls are in place such that there isn't a repeat. So I guess I'm just laying the record for my concerns. That's all. So nonetheless, I would still, at a later time, move Mr. Kovacevic to look at the MOU.
Could we have a motion on approval of the budget item for you so that we can move to a budget hearing?
I'd like to have a question, or just raise like a question. These items that we have here, we're approving these to be spent?
No, sir.
No, no, no.
That's a budget item for you to consider each project individually as it comes up. But for the purposes of formulating your final budget, I need to have numbers that I can plug into a resolution that you adopt, which sets forth the limits on expenditures and revenues for next fiscal year.
President Coletta, I would propose that we could approve that. However, that doesn't necessarily stipulate that it's for Rush Park. You could do the dustless dirt at RP1 or RP2. And if you were to do that, you would, in theory, practically eliminate any rainout games that you'd have to schedule on a Sunday, which would eliminate park usage during the January to May timeframe. Because I'm aware that when we put the dustless dirt on RP3, there was no rainout games needed on RP3 because they could literally play within a couple hours of rain occurring. So that would be a way to reduce traffic at the park.
Being as this is a placeholder currently, I mean, I would like to make a motion that we accept the budget as is, and for comments that the board next year, if you are making any determinations or looking into projects, you can then decide if you want to move it or not. I mean, clearly the CIP had a conversation, and I'm making the motion that we're proceeding forth with the budget as it stands for the 2012-2013 year. And if there's a conversation that wants to be had next year about moving, I mean, that is a different philosophical conversation. It's not a bad idea, but it's different than what the CIP was putting forth in the budget.
Yeah, and since that is the motion and I'm on this committee, I'm seconding it so you know that the two of us worked hard on this, and it's not about the effort. We believe that this is framed the appropriate way for a working budget. And I am definitely, when I see that $35,000, I understand everyone's opinion. That's a big chunk of change of the whole budget, and I do recommend we reach out to the softball league and have them put some skin in the game on this. So I second his motion, but I wanted you to understand that texture behind it.
I read that here. Okay. We have a comment from the audience.
Do we take public comments on every item? I thought there was a public comment section at the start.
No, we can take it anytime.
Come on.
Mr. Burgess, get mindful, it's 9:20 and we still have a lot of work, if you can.
I'll try to keep it below 300 questions, being facetious. Specifically on the baseball field, I don't know, and I don't have an opinion whether it's going to cause additional residential strife or whatever the terms are in that area. I do know that I went onto the website of the company that provided the dustless dirt for the project that was done a couple years ago, and they donated 100% of the materials at no charge. I can't believe that it's anywhere close to $35,000. It's about 70 cubic yards of dirt at I don't know, call it $100 a yard. It's not even close. The amount's probably 30–40% high. Thanks.
All right. Mr. Casey, I didn't mean to cut you off. Do you have any comments?
Well, the only comments I have are related to items that can probably be addressed later, but one was that in terms of the electronic message board, and I realize it's not a budget item for next year, but I think it was removed altogether instead of a TBD.
No, sir, it was recommended by the committee that it be removed.
The CIP committee
Okay, so it's like it's in Never Land now.
You could reinstate it at any meeting of the CIP committee.
That's fine. That's all I need to hear. I just wanted to make the statement that I noticed it's gone. And the last comment is on the tot lot with the new surface, that do we have any restrictions in putting that off another year in terms of any kind of governmental situations where we have to do it by a certain date to be compliant?
There is a deadline date, but there's sufficient time for us to decide when and how to do it.
Okay, so that won't be coming up within the next year that we're talking about in terms of our budget?
Well, we'll probably talk about it during the coming year because
that's fine.
We have to find coincidence between the refurbishment of the tot lot and the covering that goes on it, because you don't want to do one before the other.
Sure.
And so we're going to have a discussion with the RHA about whether or not they would want to partner with us in that, since they installed that tot lot in the first place.
Excellent. Okay, so this has been moved out, and I'm satisfied with what you've done. That's all I have.
All right, I'm going to call for the question. All in favor of this proposed budget, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We now go to the consent calendar. Does anyone wish to pull items A, B, or C? Or one, I should say one, A, B, or C?
No.
If not, all in favor of the consent calendar, items 1A, B, and C, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Consent calendar approved. Item 2, I omitted it by error. It's part of the consent calendar. All in favor of the Revenue and Expenditure report, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That's part of the consent calendar approved. Public hearing F1.
Mr. President, members of the board, as required by SB 135, a public hearing has been scheduled for the fiscal year 2012-2013 proposed final budget. It's recommended that you open the hearing, receive a presentation from the general manager, take public testimony, close the hearing, deliberate, and approve fiscal year 2012-2013 proposed final budget. This budget was presented to you preliminarily at your May and June meetings, and after deliberation of the preliminary budget, the general manager was directed to publish a notice of public hearing for this evening's meeting. SB 135 requires that it be noticed and that a public notice be placed in a newspaper, which was done, and a copy of that public hearing is attached. The document before you was prepared before final year 2011-2012 budget numbers have been audited by the district's auditor. This is due to the timing of the budget calendar, and which is required by SB 113 to be approved before August. That is not sufficient time for the audit to be completed. But we're very confident that our estimates to close are significantly close enough for they're considered sufficiently accurate for adoption of the final budget. The final budget has also been adjusted to account for changes as recommended by the board, as you just did in the previous item. This budget includes the annual salary plan and the CIP committee adjustments that you've just approved. Upon the board's approval of the proposed budget, you will be asked to adopt the annual budget revenues and expenditure totals amounts by resolution. There is included in this a memorandum from the general manager of the proposed final budget issues, and I won't go into these because it's there for you to digest and to comment on. Basically, I'd like to say that once again we're proposing to you a balanced budget with no reduction in revenues and with no reduction in service levels. That funds 20, 30, and 40 are balanced as well, with adequate amounts of reserve to pay for all of the obligations in Fund 20, 30, and 40. And that the issues that are facing the state and the county and surrounding cities have not been visited upon the district. You have adequate reserves, you have an investment plan, you have the ability to adjust your finances accordingly, according to market conditions, and you've not had to do so for the last 6 years. The proposed budget basically says that the revenues that we receive from the district are basically flat as compared to last year, and certainly trend analysis proves that point. So we present this budget to you and appreciate the way in which you have given us direction in the past, and we ask you that you open this public hearing and receive public comment.
All right, now would be the time for anyone in the audience to make comments, provide a statement either for or against or some other recommendation concerning the budget proposed fiscal year 2012-2013. No one's coming forward. Then officially we can close the hearing on any deliberations and thoughts by the board.
I know I've asked this over and over again, but I see we're budgeting the $70,800 that was a loan to the state, and we're supposed to get it back. We're definitely getting that back. The state's in such a shambles. We're budgeting to get that back.
But the state is paying its bills, and this is an obligation of the state. And the legislation that was passed under Prop 1A basically put into effect, and that it was a loan, it was a 3-year loan, be paid back with interest. It would take an extraordinary act of the legislature to back off from that. I just don't know how they could do that, since it was basically a proposition and not a legislative act.
I'm not convinced, but I feel comfortable that
I'll bring you a big check.
I hope you do. I'm comfortable that we're budgeting, it's revenues over expenditures of $66,008, so it's pretty close. So God forbid that doesn't come, we're right there, and I know that with how we've done managing our expenses in the past, we'll be fine. But I'm still not convinced that they're not going to do something, and we're not going to see that money. But I appreciate where you are.
Well, my concern is that, like in past years, on occasion, they've done IOUs, and I'm not sure they can do that with this. They probably can't, but that would be my concern, that they might do something of that nature.
So, it's all right.
I don't know what might happen, because it's a year off, but
this is legislated, so...
all right, so anything, all bets are off on it.
Mr. Tabawada, would it be correct to say, and for Fund 10 on the expenditures where it says street sweeping, we have a figure of 51,600, that should be amended to be 53,600?
We'll do that at mid-year.
I mean, due to the approval that we just did earlier?
No, we've already have a resolution that basically caps your revenues and expenditures based on what you have today. We'll make those adjustments. It's just the county's going to pay for it, so it's just an accounting number. We have a signed contract from the county, so.
All right, hearing no other thoughts from the board, for approval of this fiscal year proposed final budget, do we do this by roll call or do we do by motion?
You can do this by motion, sir.
All right. I'll make the motion that this budget proposed for 2012-2013 be our approved final budget.
Second.
Whoever wants it.
Competing seconds. You've heard. Any further discussion? No further discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Resolutions, G1.
Mr. President, members of the board, the resolution before you, 1207-10-01, approving and adopting the annual appropriations limit for fiscal year 2012-2013. You're asked to approve this resolution by roll call, waiving further reading as follows. A resolution of the Board of Directors of the Rossmoor Community Services District approving and adopting the annual appropriations limit for fiscal year 2013. This is an item that we received from the state, which calculates precisely what the spending limits are for the district, and we're well within those limits, and the resolution before you is for your approval by roll call.
Director Casey?
Aye.
Director Kahlert?
Aye.
Director Maynard?
Aye.
Director Rips?
Aye.
President Coletta?
Aye. Can I sign this resolution out this time?
Sir?
Can I sign the resolution at this time, 1207-10-01?
Oh, you have it for signature? Yes, sir.
All right, next is G2.
Sir, item G2 is resolution number 12-07-10-02, establishing the annual budget revenue and expenditure totals amount for fiscal year 2012-2013 for the Rossmoor Community Service District. You're asked to approve this resolution by reading the title only and waiving further reading.
Sorry. Just to my microphone, sorry, I was hitting with the binder.
Sir?
So this will be by roll call again?
Continue.
No, sir, it's not. No.
This is not by roll call?
You can if you like. We can certainly amend it.
I make a motion that we approve resolution number 12-07-10-02.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Resolution is approved. 12-07-10-02. Now we go to H1.
Mr. President, members of the board, the CSDA board elections are up for 2012. There are 2 seats up for election and 3 candidates vying for those positions. You have the communication from CSDA, which is the mail ballot information regarding that election process. The board is asked to pick 2 of the 3 candidates for nomination for the board of directors for CSDA. And upon your recommendation, I will forward that ballot to the CSDA for tallying as part of the election process. You have 1 letter of support for candidate Sullivan, which is submitted by her home district, and the other 2 candidates have resumes as submitted by CSDA.
Actually, all 3 candidates spoke at the, I believe it was the May 28th ISTOC meeting that I attended, and I took notes on all 3 of the candidates in terms of what they, in addition to their resumes, in terms of what they articulated in terms of their backgrounds and what they could provide in the positions that they were asking to be voted for, and based on my evaluation of the 3 of them, I would recommend Cheryl Brothers and Elaine Sullivan for the 2 positions. I realize I'm leaving out the incumbent, but my impression was the last 2 would do the best job for the CSDA.
Is that a motion, sir?
I can make the motion that, yes, that these 2 candidates, that we vote for them for that election. I'll make that as a motion. I'm not sure if the other board members have any background or any thoughts on it, but that's my recommendation, and that's my motion.
The only comment I would make, Mr. Casey, is Cheryl Brothers appeared before us approximately 1 to 2 years ago. She was looking to be...
I believe she was looking for a seat on the LAFCO.
Orange County LAFCO. She didn't get it, Charlie Wilson did.
Correct.
I remember her coming here. I don't know if anyone
Okay.
remembers that.
Yeah. That's a good memory. I knew somebody else came. I didn't realize it was her.
I don't know the other 2.
There is something to say about having an Orange County fellow resident on this board.
Are we waiting for a second on Director Casey's motion? Or we just take a vote?
We haven't had a second. I don't know if we're going to get a second.
Who knows?
I'm just procedural question.
Yeah, no. I don't know if there's a second or not.
There was not a second.
There was not a second. There isn't a second. You want to make the second?
Sure, I'll make a second.
All right, make a second. Second's made. Any further discussion? I volunteer what I know. I don't know these other 2. Which one do you think, or all 3 of them, and not 3 of them
Well, again,
residents of
I don't know
Orange
I don't know these people. On one end, I see that there's an incumbent that Ron's not recommending. And I'm curious why you're not recommending the incumbent. And then if there's anybody like yourself who has any intel on our local Orange County person, I don't know her one way or another, or her experience besides what's in here. But again, it is nice to at least a fellow Orange County resident who might be accessible for us to talk to and would understand our needs. I like that geography, if you will. But Ron, the incumbent Mackenzie, she just didn't seem in touch, or what was why are you recommending the two over the incumbent?
Well, and it's just my observations, but in terms of what I considered her level of enthusiasm, in terms of selling herself, in terms of what she's done in the past in that organization, and the way she articulated some of the ideas that she had going forward, I just felt she wasn't as strong as the other two. They seemed to have very varied backgrounds that I thought fit with the position, and I just think they did a good job of, quote, selling themselves or articulating what they could provide in the position. So it was fairly subjective.
We're going to call for the question. If it's either up or down, you need 3 votes, so.
Well, actually, okay.
Wait a second. I mean, unless you and Mr. Casey want to.
I guess I have a couple of questions. I mean, my first thing is, I feel very uncomfortable voting for people I have no idea who they are.
Agreed.
I'm voting on a piece of paper, and it just feels, as an elected official, it just seems, it doesn't feel right to be doing that, and I'm wondering if we can just not.
We can abstain.
Okay, because I'm not comfortable with
We're not
doing
obligated to do anything.
I'm also not so comfortable, even if I was going to vote as a slate. I think that they should be an individual, because I understand what Ron's saying. I have no question about your judgment, but there's just, the motion that stands is like, we got to vote for 2 or not for 2, and it just seemed, that also seemed a little bit uncomfortable to me, but.
Okay, that's fine, but what.
I'm going to be abstaining in any, if we are voting for anybody, I will be abstaining, because I don't feel comfortable voting for any of these people, because I really do not know them, other than, I think the incumbent actually has a really good resume there, and your recommendation is that she wasn't so enthusiastic, so I don't.
Well, okay, my question is, if we do not, if we don't do this now, what's the next procedure in terms of making a decision on what we do next?
What's the deadline for a decision?
What is the 3rd of?
August 3rd.
August?
You won't have
We've got like 3 weeks.
You won't have a board meeting before the.
No, I understand that.
If you don't approve it tonight,
right,
then I won't submit a ballot.
So we're just abstaining as a board.
If that's your vote.
That would have been
I think that's the default.
Well, it's a default.
The default is that we do nothing and we have no vote.
Overruled the motion.
It's a CSD vote, right? It's a CSD vote for the candidate. So how many others, I mean, there's multiple other CSDs, and you're probably not the only one that feels this way, that you don't know these candidates. But yet, we as a legislative body, we have to, at some level, a CSD has a duty to vote for its representatives.
I'm not willing to vote for people that are representing me in my district that I don't know how they're going to represent me in my district. I'm not willing to do that.
Well, I'm going to call for the question, and if anyone wants to abstain, they can abstain. If they want to vote nay, they can vote nay, and this is not a compelling process where you have to vote. I know.
I might vote nay then.
Yeah. So, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Nay. Anyone wish to abstain?
Can I just ask a question before we do that? Is it?
No,
it has to be, I just want to make sure before I make a mistake here that it has to be 3 out of 5 for this to pass?
No.
It does.
Okay.
It does.
Then I abstain.
You abstain?
Yeah, I'm going to say nay.
Nay? All right, 2 nays, 2 yes, and 1 abstention. Okay, so the motion dies.
Okay,
So there's no recommendation to, I apologize, Mr. Casey.
Not a problem.
We receive your report. I know Ms. Brothers, I think she would do fine, but I can't speak for the other person, so that's my excuse.
Understood.
You could vote for 1.
Yeah.
Can we?
All right.
Yes.
I'll put Ms. Brothers as my person I would nominate.
Okay, I'm going to second that.
Didn't we vote? Now we can talk, right?
Yes.
Didn't we vote for Charlie Wilson over her?
True.
Okay. Just wanted to make
That's correct.
Maybe I have some different information. The only I can share with the board is that I did speak with her.
She's the incumbent, right?
prior to our decision not to support her, and I informed her of our decision not to support her. She's very eager, very interested in serving as a civil servant and as a volunteer. She has served, I think, the city of La Habra or Fullerton, I believe, as a city councilman in the past, and council lady in the past. She's acknowledged by our former, or soon-to-be, past congressman for our district. He spoke well of her. So that's all I can share.
But it appears she'll have
She's
3
very
votes. Let's just call for the
personable.
question.
She was disappointed she didn't get the nomination.
Right.
She was really disappointed. She really felt that she would do a better job.
I go back to my comment of it's nice to have an Orange County resident and access.
Ron, did you hear who he recommended? Who made
I
a motion
did.
for it? Okay.
Well, I already recommended her, so I'm in favor.
All right, well, we should call for the question first.
All right,
Call
all
for
in
the
favor-
question.
All in favor of Ms. Cheryl Brothers, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstaining?
Yeah, abstain.
Okay, so the motion now carries for Ms. Brothers, 4 out of 5, with 1 abstention. Congratulations, Ms. Brothers. Now we move on to item H2.
Mr. President, members of the board, this is to approve an extended term agreement with Mr. Fernando Molina to provide tennis instructions. This is the second amendment of the 3 possible terms for this particular agreement, and it's there for your approval. Mr. Molina is in the audience, and he's submitted a letter wishing that he wants to continue with his contract with the city, with the district.
I make a motion to extend the contract for 1 more year.
I'll second.
I have comment.
Okay.
The agreement that I reviewed can clearly take a little bit of revision. There's no provision on page 2 or page 1 for early termination. No language whatsoever that I saw. Maybe I'm wrong. And it would go to both parties. That's not unilaterally to one party. And there's no reference with regards to insurance.
Mr. President, members of the board, this is only a second amendment to a 3-year term agreement, which you've already approved.
That's fine.
And that language is the standard contract language is in that document.
But it's negotiable. I mean, this isn't a one-way street. And Mr. Molina could say yes or no. I mean, you're making me feel like it's an adhesion contest. I have a gun to my head, almost. It can be revised. There's no termination agreement here. What if he just wants to find a better situation? And he says, you know what, I'd like to bow out. And we say no. There's no provision.
In the base agreement, that language is included. Now, if you want me to provide you with that agreement, I can do that.
I personally think it should be in the contract. I think there should be a termination agreement for both sides. I have no issue with Mr. Molina, but it is not in here. It doesn't allow him to walk away without us having hard feelings if he did.
This is not a wall-to-wall agreement. This is simply an amendment to an existing agreement.
Yeah, what he's saying is the actual base agreement isn't included in your packet.
Right, well, I don't have the entirety of the agreement, so is it in any of the agreement?
Sir?
It is?
No, what your question?
Is a termination agreement?
It's your standard agreement that you do have for all of your contracts, standard language.
So your answer is yes, that there is a provision?
Yes, there is.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear. And what about insurance, same thing?
Exactly.
Okay, that's all I need to hear. Any further discussion?
Nothing further.
Jeffrey, anything else?
I think that's good. Thanks.
All right, we'll call for the question. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. H3.
I do want to say thank you. I hear a lot of positive things about what you do, so appreciate it. I personally don't play, but I probably should, but I hear good stuff. Thank you.
Hey, give him some lessons.
Yeah. At your normal
I hear you're good,
rates.
but not that good.
Next item, Mr. Jawada.
Next item, sir, is H5. It's a request to execute an agreement with West Coast Electric for electrical repairs.
What happened to
We already did
H4?
before.
Mr.
sorry,
Tavalata, shouldn't it
we
be
didn't do
H4?
Sorry about
I think we
that.
skipped one.
The Novocaine's worn off and
Yes.
Mr. President, members of the board, H4 is a request to hire a temporary part-time assistant recreation leader. I've kept you advised of all of the issues regarding the current employees with medical leave and the need to have enough personnel to carry out the mission of the district. Your part-time maintenance assistant resigned, and your part-time recreation leader is recovering from back surgery. In the meantime, we have utilized a temporary recreation leader, which you have authorized me to hire, and we also need now authorization to hire a temporary assistant recreation leader to assist, believe it or not, with maintenance duties, which this individual is capable of performing.
Do we have any idea how long Mr. Argueta will be out with his, after the back surgery?
Well, he's, from what I hear, he's having a great recovery, but it
Okay.
all depends on when he's released by his doctor and what limitations, if any, are placed on him.
Okay, well, I mean, that's fine, but I just want to make sure that we're not doing this for just maybe 1 month or something like that.
Well, even if it was for 1 month, we
Right.
are really strapped for.
No, I understand that.
All right, I make the motion to direct the acting manager consultant to retain part-time support for this position.
I'll second.
For discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Now H5.
Now, moving on to H5. This is a request to execute an agreement with West Coast Electric for electrical repairs to the Rush Park Auditorium. When we did the work in the part of the auditorium that we're in now, there was extensive rewiring that was required. And during that project, it was determined, one, that the current wiring in the rest of the auditorium is deficient, that the lighting appliances that are currently in use are obsolete, and that we'll have difficulty finding replacement parts for those in the very near future. And also, if you may recall, at least some of you were here during the electrical blackout when the auditorium went dark, and we had no exit lighting, lit lighting. We were basically blind in this facility. Since that time, we have installed the bug lights, the exit bug lights on both sides of the auditorium, and those are per code. We need those also installed in the rest of the exits to the auditorium when these panels are not in place. This is a project that is, as you approved the budget, in your now current year budget as a project list, and was recommended by the CIP committee for inclusion in this year's project list. I bring it to you now because I think it's something that is a safety issue that we should deal with as quickly as possible.
So did we get proposals for anyone besides West Coast Electric?
I did not, and the reason for that is that it was West Coast Electric that did all of the research on what was needed in the first place.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that that was the same company.
We didn't want to reinvent the wheel, and his pricing has always been very competitive.
Yeah, that was my indirect way of asking that.
All right, is there anyone going to make the motion to direct?
I make a motion that we contract with West Coast Electric to do the work as noted on page 195 of 254, the proposal.
Oh, yes. Is there a second?
I second.
All right, Mr. Burgess, does you have a comment?
I've read the proposal, and I fully agree that if there's emergency lighting that's needed in case of a blackout, it has battery backups in these lights. I think the pricing is it's $200 per fixture. Those fixtures are about $50, $60 a piece, so he's charging us $140. I don't know all the details, living wage, you can refute everything I say, I don't care. It's too much money, but I do believe that needs to be done. To replace and spend $14,000 on lights that are obsolete potentially. There's 88 of them. Is there 10 that are broken now? Are they going out once a month? We don't know. I contacted a Title 24 consultant this morning. He's charging us $3,000 for engineering in Title 24.
That's a lot.
That person, without my first comment, said, engineering, what's that? That's a nice way of padding the funds. Second, and then I look at the second page where he's not quantifying any of the potential variables. Sorry. He's not quantifying any of the potential variables, and he's not providing something as simple as 25 new tiles in his bid. If we're going to pay a vendor a reasonable amount, which $21,000 is too much for the whole scope of work, I think he ought to at least quantify potential damage. He ought to include, $200 worth of tiles. I don't know what these tiles cost. I think it's the wrong thing to do. And I don't have it in front of me. I read all the 250 pages in the last couple days, but he should be able to quantify it. He's charging us too much for the fixtures, even at prevailing wages. I've talked to electricians that I know. I'm not bidding on the work. I'm a general contractor. I went into it fairly uninformed, but I did my due diligence for a couple hours, and I don't agree with it. I would say maybe $4,000, replace emergency lighting, and put off the rest till later. Thanks.
I don't know what the cost for fixtures are, and I know Mr. Talbot is not going to go out and shop for fixtures and contrast that with the price the contractor is suggesting.
The proposal, Mr. President, members of the board, is consistent with requirements set forth by the county planning and building. And so the cost for engineering is required by the county for them to approve the permit.
Well, these calculation costs include the permit and everything.
No, they don't.
They don't?
County, in the notes section, county permit planning fees not included. Notes section. That's just the, that's just the title on 24 calcs. You're going to pay for permits on top of that, but that's not thousands of dollars.
It's not.
But I don't know if we have to pull a plan to do this. I don't know.
Sir?
I don't know if we have to pull a plan to do an upgrade to replace fixtures and wiring. I don't.
I don't understand your question.
He's asking, do we have to have a plan, a schematic to show the county?
Oh, yeah, you've got to provide a plan of work, a scope of work to the county, absolutely.
Okay. So then we have to get inspectors out. We're going to have to have a building plan, because from what I'm reading here, they're going to redo some wiring as well.
Correct. He discovered, and I observed, wiring that had where the insulation had cracked and showed evidences of overheat. They were never wired properly, correct, in the first place.
What's the difference between a parabolic lens and a prismatic lens?
I have no idea.
Okay, Dave? You got to come up so they hear you on the microphone, sorry.
According to my quick research this morning, a prism is basically just like a shower, fogged, like a frosted, and a parabolic actually, I believe, has rectangles that are reflective in nature. So in one 2x4, there's like 15 of these rectangles in it, and they're about $6 more a piece, and he's got them in there for about $15 a piece more for the same. Just change the part number and order it.
Thank you.
Keep in mind, I don't have a public works director.
Right.
Mr. Chabot, on page 195 of his proposal,
195?
Well, it's base stamp 195 of 254. It's the proposal. Attachment 2.
Yes, sir.
All right, item 3, the electrical engineering, is he going to do the drawings?
No, sir, an engineer will do that.
So when he says in electrical engineering / Title 24 calculation cost of $3,000, does that include the fee to the engineer to do the drawings?
As far as I know, yes.
Those are just the energy calcs. That's all.
No. The energy calcs is the Title 24 calculator. I'm talking about the electrical engineering. Does that mean an actual schematic?
You don't need a schematic for this.
We don't? That's what I'm asking.
No, but you need to have a scope of work that defines what you're going to do.
Okay.
All right.
Anything else want to
Well,
comment?
I recall, Mr. Taboada, that some of our current lighting fixtures that we have are soon to become obsolete based on the bulbs.
The availability of bulbs, yes.
Bulbs, because isn't there a timeline when those bulbs will no longer exist?
That's right, they'll stop manufacturing them.
Okay, that's what.
And as you see before you, you've got a little bug light there because one of our light fixtures up there,
That one's missing.
yes, it is, soon to be replaced.
Yeah.
Mr. Rips, you're in agreement with all this? Okay.
I'd like to see this put off a month so I can get some more detailed info on exactly what he's charging us for each of these fixtures. I don't think, Mr. Taboada, that you have to do anything, but I think it's fair to go back to the contractor and say, I'd like it just broken down in a spreadsheet format, what that part number is, how much you're paying, and what your markup is on each of these fixtures.
I don't believe a proposal ever has markup on it. It tells you what they're charging you for what you're getting. I've never had a proposal that said, I'm going to charge you X% for a markup or.
Okay.
I can get you a better explanation perhaps, but it's not going to be.
Yeah, I'd also like to find out exactly how much we're going to be paying for county permit and planning fees, when he says that's not included.
I also have a question. What is Cheryl's role in when we start doing these projects?
She's your architectural consultant.
What does that mean?
That she's someone that can go down to the county and pull permits and deal with the county and bureaucracy and get you plans and specs approved and advise the CIP committee on how to proceed with bidding and awarding of projects, et cetera.
Does she have any role in like this proposal? Did she look at it? Does she supposed to look at it?
This has been on the books now for a couple of years.
Right.
And she has not. Currently, she's working on your signage project.
Well, as you mentioned, you don't have a public works department.
That's
but
right.
We do have a resource in Cheryl, and I think having her eyes on this is important. It's a $21,000 price tag.
Our lights went out day before yesterday for 4.5 hours.
Your lights?
At home.
So we should pay $21,000?
No, I'm just saying to you that, you know,
it happens, right?
No. You never know.
We have a hand from the.
I'd like to raise a motion to have, is it Cheryl Williamson?
Yes.
Is that her name?
I don't think you can actually make a motion when there's already a motion on the floor that's been seconded.
All right, I'll call for the question. All in favor of the motion, please say aye. All opposed?
Nay.
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 All right, there you go.
Okay, so the new
We're
motion is
excited.
Cheryl Williamson. Look at this proposal, lend her eyes to it, and give her a recommendation as to what further information that she deems that the district needs to have.
And costs.
And costs as well.
Your future projects will have that input. It's just that we were between council, between, you know.
Understood.
Contract, or, you know.
All right, all in
Second,
favor?
if that wasn't seconded.
All right, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? All right, motion carries. Great. Now we go to the second reading of policies. Save the best for last.
Second to last.
No,
Oh, no, you're
we did.
last.
Yeah, this is it.
Mr. President, members of the board, item H6 is second reading for restructuring of board policies regarding district parks, fields, and facilities. We brought this to you for first reading, I believe, in the month of May, and for first reading, and indicated to you that it would be appropriate for us to meet with both the Park Use Committee, I believe it's what it's called, the Park Policy Committee, and also to meet with the MOU Committee and discuss these policies with regard to some of the issues that were raised during the MOU process. Both of those meetings have taken place, and no recommendations were made by either committee to amend these policies based on those meetings. So they're before you for second reading and your comments and hopefully approval.
All right, let's start with 6010. It's the first one. The revision, have discussion. Look at all.
I mean, if I have this straight, there's been no changes from the first reading to the second reading, or like any changes that we suggested in the first reading have been incorporated into the second
Those
reading?
were incorporated,
That's
yes.
it.
I make a motion that we accept policy 6010, the proposed revisions.
I second.
Any further comment?
Nope.
Well, I have some comments. On page 203 of 254, the red line of 6010. To be specific, 6010.10 limitations of use here does not address the discussions we had earlier during the adoption of our budget, nor in our report of the Public Works by the CIP committee. There's no reference whatsoever here of addressing spacing in between games, no play time in between games, practice games versus games that might be exclusive to LAGSL. And as much as I know there's an MOU out there floating around, this 6010.10 does nothing really for the spacing of games and going to set up a game, the termination of a game, scrimmage or exercise, practice, and the setup of another practice game with an outside team. So in as much as I've asked someone to look at the MOU, the person who looks at the MOU, being Mr. Kovacevic, has to look at 601010, because you don't know what 601010 states or doesn't state, and yet the MOU is going to be incorporated by reference into a permit with reference to 601010. And so I'm just citing that as a sort of as a caveat. With regards to 6010.
Mr. President, before you get off that subject, part of the objective, I would say, of the MOU committee was to differentiate between broad policies that affect everyone equally and those specific issues that relate to LAGSL. The mistake, I believe, that was made in the formulation of these policies initially was that things were inserted in there specifically to deal with LAGSL issues that affected everybody. So this was an attempt here to separate the two, to deal specifically with the LAGSL and the MOU and its limitations, and to make these broader policies that relate to the entire use of these park facilities. So if you want to change that objective, then it requires someone to go back and...
No, I'm just pointing it out to Mr. Kovacevic, is that in the past, you're correct. It was tailored to LAGSL, but then there's another way of doing it. I don't propose to do it another way other than that the MOU has to be examined. the terms have to be clear and they have to be enforceable from the standpoint of whoever the acting manager would be or the actual manager. That's where I'm coming from. So that it's clear and it's understood on by both sides. And this paragraph does nothing whatsoever.
I don't know if it's possible, but in one of the previous meetings, there was a suggestion by a community member, which I actually liked, and I understand the MOU in the way it stands now needs to be looked at for its authenticity or whatever, but...
Well, enforcement.
Enforcement, okay. But it seems to be the concept of any long-term rental or organized sport having to create an enforceable MOU before we, if that was somewhere in our policy, I understand a one-off rental is not a big deal, but AYSO or LHSL or another sport organization that wants to come in, that before we do anything, we have to sit down and create an MOU, and that's part of our policies for a long-term thing. And I don't know how to put that, but I think that made a lot of sense, so that it protects us. We create a document that's enforceable, but it's tailored to each individual group as it needs. So I don't know where that would go in these policies, but to me, if there's something like that in here, it would make a lot of sense as part of how we govern, because it makes it part of how we do our day-to-day operations with these groups.
No disagreement with you. But Mr. Kovacevic is new to the game here, so he's...
I'm tossing it out as well.
With regards to priority of use, paragraph 6010.20, we talk about priority. Rossmoor organizations, Rossmoor residents, and yet when we turn the page and we see in the red line copy the provision for some demand for proof. For example, the policeman stops you and says, do you have a driver's license? You drive a motor vehicle. And you go, you can't ask me. Well, how do I know you have priority to drive on the street or preference to drive on the street? It's a privilege. You have to have a driver's license. I don't understand how we're going to get priority out of this paragraph without some proof. And in as much as I don't want the manager to act like the policeman here, but I don't know how do you make priority?
Well, I'll give you an example. This board determined that you had to be a resident in order to reserve a picnic field and not be in lieu of a non-resident. When someone comes in and requests to rent a picnic, make a picnic reservation, we ask them for proof of residency. And it can be their driver's license, it can be a utility bill, it can be their deed to their property. We don't care, as long as they can demonstrate to us that they're a resident. So we would make that same determination on any other category based on reasonable criteria that we would utilize.
Has anyone ever refused your request for information like that?
No, sir, and we wouldn't give them a permit if they did.
There you go.
Okay, well then there's a basis from experience to strike this sentence, but I thought in the past it was included so that it gives you a basis, or anyone basis, who's issuing the permit or who has discretion to issue it, to have proof. So,
I missed that.
Anyway.
I guess maybe I see it the opposite. If that's what we're doing, why are we taking it out?
That's the point.
Right.
I don't see the harm in keeping it. It protects the person issuing the permit. Or
what was the rationale to take it out then? I guess I'm
take what out?
The general manager
6010.20 on the red line, we took out the line that says the general manager may require documentation to authenticate the addressee and identities of the requester.
This late in the night and several months ago, I don't recall.
I would ask to be included. How are you going to establish priority?
We untake it out.
To show you anything, and they won't.
I agree. I think we should untake it out.
So what do we do, a motion or is just we?
I'm going to make the motion that 6010.20 include the last sentence. You see?
Yeah.
Okay. Strike it. Tell them we already have
second that motion.
Okay, it's been seconded. And
yes,
call for the question. All in favor of that revision, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining?
No, that's good.
No abstaining?
Yeah.
No, I think he said no, it's good.
All right, so the motion carries. There's at least 4 that said aye. It passes. Anyone else have comments on 6010?
Nothing, no.
All right, then let's go to the next one. 6011.
So by the way, was your motion to accept the entire thing with that amendment?
Yeah.
6011, anyone have comments?
Well, I have a question on something that actually wasn't changed. It's on the bottom.
What page?
Page 223 of 254. 601188, inflatable devices.
That's not their personal.
The last sentence says, helium-filled balloons are not permitted in the Rush Park Auditorium. Why is it just specifically indicating Rush Park and none of the other facilities?
High ceiling.
Okay,
We can't get them down without bringing staff out with a big ladder and so on.
so that doesn't apply to any
No.
of our other facilities?
No.
Fair enough.
Okay. Good. 6012, any comments?
Yeah, I have something there too. On 6012, page 225 of 254, 601240, denial of a user permit. My question is, in terms of somebody who's violated our policy and had to be evicted or has done something that has caused a problem, it says that you can get another permit as long as it's more than 12 months since you did the violation. My question is that really long enough for a violation that's of any kind of a major consequence? I was thinking more like 2 or 3 years or even longer before they could get another permit if they committed that kind of violation.
Well, it depends, sir, on who committed the violation and what their makeup is. If it's an organization that changes people on an annual basis or something like that, it could be reconstituted as a different board or a different organizational structure, and, you know, that happens generally on an annual basis, and I think that was the thought behind the 12 months.
Okay, so it's pretty much subject to your approving the next permit that you evaluated on a case-by-case ballot basis before you make a determination.
Correct. Now, if someone wanted to do an activity in the park, let's say, and it was an approved use, and,
Sure.
and they came in and they had a beer bash instead of a softball game.
Right.
We would say, you're done. And if they came back 12 months later, we could approve it if it had, like I said, demonstrated that they had a different makeup, a different organizational structure, a different name, whatever. But I would still use my discretion as to
Sure.
whether or not we would approve it.
Right,
even-
you're going to evaluate what happened last time and then decide. Yeah, that's good, fair enough. That's all I have on that one.
All right, anything else?
Yeah, number 6050? 6050.10?
6015.10?
6050.10?
Page 235?
237 to 254. The last sentence, I'm not sure why that's needed. Because and then if we go down to 6050.60, if a single player has reserved the court for practice, why does that person have to vacate if they paid a fee and they are practicing there if 2 people are waiting? Do you pay more of a fee if there's 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 people? I think it's a flat fee to reserve a court, right?
Not if it's there's 2 ways you can play tennis. First come, first serve, or reserve.
Yeah.
This is first come, first serve.
Yep.
And what we do is we limit the time that someone who does not pay to monopolize the court while people are waiting.
Okay, so this is not for reservations. This is just somebody shows up and nobody has a reservation.
Correct.
So I get 60-50-60, but 60-50-10, is that last sentence needed? The Rossmoor courts are primarily intended for the playing of games by 2 or more persons?
60-50 which?
10. 6050.10.
Yes.
The Rossmoor courts are primarily intended for the playing of games by 2 or more persons. It just seems like a sentence that's not really needed.
We also get people who bring a tennis ball machine?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're just sitting there hitting balls.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay, well,
And that's only one person.
yeah, it's one person.
okay. And the problem?
Nothing. We just say that they're intended for the use of 2 or more people. If there's no one using the court, we don't care. I don't think we've ever enforced this, so
Yeah,
it's...
I just
I can
saw the
imagine.
sentence, I'm like, it just seems unnecessary, but, okay. Okay, yeah.
I got nothing else.
All right. No more, Mr. Casey, you have something?
I have nothing else.
All right, that's it. I don't think we have anything else.
Need a motion to approve?
I'll
So
make the
motioned.
motion. All right, I've been beat up. There's a first. I'll make the second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Motion carries. General manager items?
In the interest of time, no, sir. Oh, I can update you, I guess, on the fact that I am in the process of the recruitment process, and we'll have a calendar for you shortly to give you an idea of how long and how this process will develop and evolve.
Any board member items? Item board of director would like to propose to be agendized next month or future months?
Nope.
Nothing.
Nothing? Nothing.
Nothing for me.
Mr. Kovacevic, again, welcome. Congratulations to Mr. Jenkins, Ms. Hogan, and all of the staff.
Great, thank you very much.
Look forward to the relationship. I'm pleased personally with the product that I observed quickly in a minute or two. The responses were right on, diplomatic, concise, accurate.
Quick study.
Thank you very much. It's nice to be
I
here.
look forward to
Absolutely.
a comparable memo, a letter that I already echoed earlier.
What's that?
I look forward to a comparable letter, but a very enforceful letter to the county.
Oh, yeah, it's already done.
Their view on the AG.
It's already done, yeah.
And we also look forward to no conflicts.
The what?
No conflicts.
Okay, yeah, no conflicts.
All right, motion to adjourn, please.
So motioned.
I'll second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, none. Meeting adjourned.
No.